Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Happy Friday night, as we have a special treat for all of you. The man we call Oob around here, Joe Monk, is going to be our guest tonight. His stories are absolutely incredible. You're going to learn all about them tonight from one of our longest listeners on this show. Would you believe he actually hated me? He actually hated me when we first came out. Hour 3, we got Swamp Dweller. Then Lee Strauss will fill in for Jackie Harmon, who is currently, in just outside of L.A., and we know what's going on there. So prayers to her. And don't worry, her house is safe. And best part about it is all of you are here as well, including race fan in the gold medal position, Kitty Cattywag with a silver, Fapster with a bronze medal tonight. Hi, Robert Lamoth, Road Flare, Frankie B. How y'all doing? Hippie Deidre, what's going on Vancouver Island? Hope you're doing well. Bigfoot Dwarf is here. Bigfoot Dwarf will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Deborah Rooney, good to see you. Jeff Steve Garvey is here. He'll hit a home run for you. Lee the B, how you doing? Jessica S. Luscious Jules, nice to see you. Monica, thank you for coming on in. As we continue on with our roll call tonight. Little Timmy James. How you doing, buddy? Good to have you here. And there's in the studio, Nikki in Seattle. Thanks for coming on in. Ethanol, JSCO, Dragonfly. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Necessary Dialogue. Mel WD-40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show. Because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. And to oob it on up with Joe, you got to be lubed. You have to be. Otherwise, he doesn't play well when it's rigid. Just doesn't play well. All right, Search and Destroy. How you doing? Millennia, my man. And who else is here? Tim Mothman and his goatee, 2 separate entities. Good to see you both. Deanna Ann, Operation Shutdown. Thanks for coming on in. As we continue on with our roll call tonight, Thomas Rock, good to see you. Bombshell Bomber is here. Bombshell Bomber will be signing autographs after the show as well. Light up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Hillbilly Herb, good to see you. Thanks for coming on in. Excuse me. As we continue on roll call, Richard Minnick, thanks for joining us. And Little Cam, hanging on out on YouTube. To prepare for Joe, he ran 74 laps in 19 minutes, 58 seconds. His cardio is up for tonight. He's ready. Karen in the Wound Train, JSCO, and Truth Seeker, J Truth Seeker, how you doing? Number 41 in your program, starting in gold tonight from Stockholm, Sweden. Lars Jansson, Resonate, good to see you. Christine Lynn, Kimberly Burgess, thanks for coming on in. As we continue on with roll call here, let us say hello to Magneticus. Good to have you here. Hi there, Lenda. Algaray over on Twitch, 247 pull-ups in under 3 minutes. His arms are jacked, ready for the main tonight. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Thank you, Debster, for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Phineas over on X, how you doing? Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Tonight, what's it like to be an experiencer? Joe Monk joins us as he's going to tell his exhilarating stories of near-death experiences, aliens, Bigfoot, and so much more. We are on roll call with our YouTube chat as we say hello to Alien Critter. Corey, thanks for coming on in. Firewater, good to have you here. And let's see here. Who else is that? Skip, how you doing? UFOs, not drones. Nice to see you. Emperor Penguin, hey, Fedora John. Are you safe? Let us know. Give me a thumbs up or something, even though I won't see it. Let us know if you're safe, okay? Mr. Cowley, how you doing? Phyllis Boucher Perry, Nucker, Spiraling 69, John Lamb, Emily Menshouse, how are you? Long time, no time. Good to have you back. And who else is here? Scrolling on down. I think we're ready. Do me a favor, everybody. Hi, Vanessa. How are you? Throw those horns up. Let's rock. Mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock up the Bumblefoot Beat Newswire. Check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Jive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Jive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show for you tonight. It's all about the experience of the unknown. One of our longtime listeners, Joe Monk, he's going to be a first-time guest tonight after listening for like 9 years to this show. And we're going to have a blast with him. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller is here with a spooky story. Follow that up by Lee Strauss. We'll be in for the Crypted Report. Now, every now and again, I like to do things a little bit differently here. For our radio side, we have a live chat room in our YouTube channel that really pays attention to what we do. And there's literally 100 to 200 people in there at a time, hanging on out, doing their thing, chatting away, listening to the weird, strange programs that we put on, and enjoying every moment of it. One of my longtime listeners, a gentleman named Joe Monk, he's a former geologist. He lives in California, northeastern California, by the Nevada border. And he has had a number of experiences. He's had a near-death experience. He's had experiences with Sasquatch and experiences with extraterrestrials. We're going to get into all of this tonight because sometimes, even though this topic can get really political, even though this topic can get real far unknown with whatever the government is trying to show us, there are real people behind the stories that aren't supposed to exist. It doesn't matter whether you are educated like Joe, who, like I said, is a former geologist, or if you're a person who is framing houses for a living, working at a gas station, selling cars, an accountant, doctor, lawyer, does not matter. The one thing that we know is the phenomena affects everybody. Joe Monk, it's been a long time coming, but it's good to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, Dave. It's really great to be here.
It's good to have you here as well. And you know what? Let's just warm up the audience for a little bit here, because about 9 years ago, you started listening to this show, and you hated me You thought I was terrible. What's with that?
Well, like I said, it was about 9 years ago, and I was recovering from a motorcycle accident and learning how to walk again. And I'd finally gotten a smartphone, and I'm sitting outside, and I started finding different broadcasts, and I ran across this guy named Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio. And I'd listened to a few, and they're all pretty bad. And there was something about Dave's show. I was listening to it, and I honestly don't believe most people, and I think a lot of people on the internet are full of it. But I kept listening, and his stories were fascinating. And this was back before you could see him. And he sounded great, but I was skeptical of some of his stories. And I pretty much let him know that. He didn't like me at first.
Well, the feeling was mutual.
Oh, yeah, you hated me.
Well, that's because every time I opened my mouth, you were giving some sarcastic comment in the chat room on Facebook about how I was full of it, and you were mean. So I figured I had to fix you.
Well, so you brought me around.
Well, let's go back to that, though, because you would question me really, really hard on what I was saying and my own experiences in the chat room and on air. And one night when we were on the air, I forget what the topic was or what we were talking about on the air, but I remember thinking, I'm going to fix this guy. I'm going to fix him. And sure enough, I said something to you very profound. You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. Dave knew I was listening and sitting outside, and I live out in the woods. And Dave's kind of sarcastically said, "Joe, you don't believe me. You don't believe anything I say." He said, I want you to do something for me. I want you to stand up. I want you to walk out about 30 feet from where you are right now. And then turn to the right and just take a picture. And then send that to me. I thought, okay, yeah, I'll play the game. Got up, walked out, pointed into the darkness, flashed a picture, came back, sit down. I looked at the picture, and I couldn't believe it, but there was two sets of eyes. In fact, there might have even been a third set. I'm not sure.
Three sets.
Three sets. And I'm looking at this, and it's hard to tell from the picture. I tried finding it for the show, but I couldn't find it. It was 9 years ago, 2 computers and 3 phones ago. But the one set of eyes that was closest, it was maybe 50 feet away. They're positioned above this rock. There's like a big rock outcropping in front of my house. And it was either something sitting on the rock that had these huge wide-spaced eyes, which there's nothing that would be like that, or it's something standing behind it. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4" plus, and I could reach my hand up, and I can't reach the top of the rock from the back side. I could reach about 8 foot up. Something was standing behind that rock, and its head was over the top. And I mean, there's no doubt about it. You could see the glowing eyes. They were big. They were wide spaced. And there was another set behind it. And then over to the left, there was a third set of eyes near a tree. And I said, well, how the hell did Dave know that there was something out there? I couldn't believe it. I sent him the picture. He saw it. And we've pretty much been buddies ever since.
What went through your mind? Now, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but during that time, I was told, get Joe to do this. Just something intuitively told me to get Joe to do this. And you did, and thank you for following that. But those eyes that you saw, describe those eyes, because in the photo, a lot of people will say that they're raccoon eyes or maybe eyes of a deer or something along those lines. You live in the wilderness. You know what the animal eyes look like. What did they look like to you?
They were, the thing is about it, it can't be a raccoon. They would be too close together. It couldn't be a deer because the deer couldn't get to actually where the eyes were. They were wide spaced. I mean, maybe like the width of maybe a football across or so. And they were big, they were round, and they were, it was whatever it was looking right at me. Um, I knew from being up here that there were things in the woods. I've never actually seen one, but I've heard them. I've seen evidence in photos. Um, they've left footprints, they've snapped trees. But for you to tell me to go out and take a picture at that moment, and like you said, something told you to tell me to go out and take the photo. And I don't know, maybe they were talking to you. Maybe they were actually, it was fairly close. They could probably hear the show. Maybe they wanted you to know to tell me to go take the photo. I don't know. It was very strange. I was completely flabbergasted, and I still am.
Yeah, that was weird. That was totally weird. Well, let's move on here because that's a mystery that we're never going to solve. And I still think after discussing that, I still have that feeling that it was either aliens watching you or maybe a family of Sasquatch watching you, my friend.
It could have been either one. I can't deny it's one or the other. Can't prove it's one or the other. But there was definitely something there.
Let's teach our audience a little bit about you. You are a former geologist who loved digging into the ground, looking for archaeology sites, looking at rocks, minerals, everything on the ground. How did you go from geology to becoming an experiencer?
Well, actually, I think I was an experiencer from the time I was maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, right in there. I wouldn't call it an experience or a meeting with aliens. I always just considered it, I used to have weird dreams. I could remember lying in bed at night, looking at the window, pitch black outside, and I'd see a hand come up from the bottom and tap the window. And that's how the dream would start. Had it maybe 2, 3 times a year, back when I was a kid. And it's very fragmented. Not really a lot of details, but I remember I always felt like there were some little guys with me. I remember being in a metallic corridor, walking along with them. And then I'd wake up and I'd say, oh man, I had that weird dream again. So as far as being an experiencer, it started early, I guess. And I thought maybe this happened to everybody. I never told anybody about it, never discussed it with anyone.
What kind of dreams were you having as a kid?
Pretty normal. Really mostly everyday kind of dreams that people have, going places or being outside playing. There's nothing terrible. I was never falling, never being chased by anything, never any monsters or anything like that in the dreams. But the thing is, I dream. If I'm sleeping, I'm dreaming. I'm one of those people, I dream every time I'm asleep. And they're always very mundane, nothing exciting. And, 10, 15 minutes after you wake up, you've completely forgotten it. You can't remember it. Well, this was all those years ago, and I could still remember pieces of those dreams. Now, I'm calling them dreams. Maybe they were actual experiences, but I can't prove that. I don't know that I was taken away and Who knows what happened, because it's just fragments. But I always remembered them, and they kind of just stopped happening when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and then went on from there.
Now, you said that you thought everybody had them. What were you seeing in those dreams? Like, what were you experiencing? Was it flying, or like did it feel like you were flying, or what did it feel like you were in a different world?
Oh no, nothing like it. Like I said, it's just a few fragments here and there that I could remember. There was I can remember walking along, and like I said, I'm maybe 5, 6 years old, with some beings that were about my height. They were, they weren't really big people, adults or anything. I thought they were like kids like me, maybe. And I can remember the corridors were kind of like a burnished metal. And at one point, this is one thing that's very vivid that I do remember. In the wall of the corridor, there were like bars, like an old jail cell you'd see in an old Western movie. And you couldn't see into the cell. And all of a sudden, this big pair of hands, big hairy hands, comes out and wraps her fingers around the bars and shakes the door a little bit. And I can hear a low growl. And I don't know if they said it to me or if I heard them think it to me, however that works. But I remember them saying, "Don't tell anybody about this, or we will let him loose and he'll come get you." And my best impression was that it was probably a Bigfoot or something like it. That's the most vivid thing I remember about that.
Can you repeat that again?
What they said?
Yeah. Who do you think they were? And repeat what they said.
I don't know who they were, but and I don't have a vivid recollection of what they looked like, but I remember they were about my height.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember when the first time I saw Whitley Strieber's book in the grocery store, I looked and went, "Oh, that's those little guys." But not quite, but similar.
Yeah.
But they said, "Don't tell anybody of what we've done here, or we're going to let him loose and he'll come get you." It was almost like, don't say anything. And that's the most vivid part of the dream I remember.
I think we all have that dream, Joe, for us experiencers. I remember my dream. I was in a white room hearing this deep voice talk to me. The voice was coming from nowhere but everywhere at the exact same time. And it was 3 weeks before I saw the UFO landing and then had the experience in the forest with Samantha Mowat. It was quite before that. But I mean, the fact that you listened to that, how did you take heed of that, what I'm going to call a warning?
Well, being a kid, I took it to heart. I didn't say anything to anybody. I never told my brothers and my parents and my friends, anybody. In fact, this is the first time I've ever told that story. All these decades later, I've never told anybody about that. It's just too weird. No one would believe it.
So why tell it now?
I figure if there's a time to say anything, this is it. I'm on here. I told you, you can ask me anything and I'll tell you everything I know. Whether people believe it or not, I've gotten to the point in my life I don't care if people believe me or not. I don't have proof of any of these things.
Right.
I know I'm not nuts. But like I said, at that point, I always thought they were dreams when I was a kid. Because I could remember waking up and going, "Oh, I had that weird dream again."
Let's talk about the fact that you don't care, as we got about 5 minutes to go before we're going to break.
Sure.
I hear that from a lot of experiencers. You listen to a lot of experiencers over the years. And people who just have taken so much criticism over these alleged experiences, Joe, they just don't seem to care what people say anymore. It's just they're done with it. Why don't you care if somebody says, I don't believe you, I think you're full of it, I think you're making this up on the fly?
Well, I think it has part, it's just that I've been around for so long, and I was around a long time before the internet. So when you talk to somebody, they'd talk to you face to face. No matter what you're saying, if somebody doesn't believe you, you say, well, okay, fine. You don't believe me. I don't care. I didn't have to worry about getting trolled on the internet back then. But I think it's a good place to be mentally and spiritually, I guess, to realize that everybody has opinions. There's thousands of them out there. And I'm not here to impress anybody. I don't care. I'm not trying to make money. I don't write books. I don't do lectures. If somebody thinks I'm full of it, well, that's on them. I mean, I could tell a story, and if someone wants to listen to it, fine. If they're not interested, I stop telling the story. It doesn't bother me one way or the other what people think. I don't know how I got that way. I think it's a good way to be.
I think it's wonderful that you're that way too, my friend, because the one thing that we need more of is we need more people who are willing to talk about their experiences and talk about what they're going through and how real this is. For you, how real is this? Because we're going to get deep into your experiences here next half hour.
How real is the dream I had when I was a kid?
No, just how real is your entire situation?
I've experienced, you call it experiences. I consider you an experiencer. I know there's a lot of experiences out there. They've had face-to-face contact with aliens, Bigfoot, ghosts, spirits, all the kinds of things. I tend to believe that most of these things are real. I don't consider myself an experiencer because I've never actually seen an alien other than those dreams when I was a kid. As far as Bigfoot goes, I've seen the evidence. I've heard them. I've seen evidence they've been around, but I've never seen one. So I haven't experienced that. But I've noticed things. I call myself a noticer. I've never had the direct interaction that people like you have, but I've noticed a lot of weird things. I've been in situations where there's a lot of people around, and I'll say, did you see that? And people look at you like, see what? And you just kind of go, oh, nothing. You didn't notice it. I did. I'm going to leave it at that.
You feel okay with that?
Oh, I'm fine with it. That's like I said, I was a geologist, and part of the training for that was you have to notice things. You have to be able to walk along, and you have to notice what doesn't belong. What's the thing that's not a rock? Is that a dinosaur bone or is that a rock? You have to notice things. And I've always been very sharp at what's going on around me. I'm very aware of everything that's going on around me. I'm always looking, always listening. Some people, an elephant can walk by them and they wouldn't notice. I could see one out in the field and go, look, there's an elephant. And how come you don't show elephants at night anymore?
How come I don't what?
You used to show elephants at night after the show. You had game cams from Africa.
You know what? I'll be honest with you. The reason why I'm signing off early on our YouTube channel after the radio portion of this show, we continue on our YouTube channel. I'm so tired from my daytime job. I gotta get ready for bed, and that's the truth of it all. I'm just tired. That's all. But Joe, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. When we return on Spaced Out Radio with our guest tonight, experiencer, noticer Joe Monk, longtime listener of this show, we're going to get into his near-death experience when we return on Spaced Out Radio. All right, Joe, we're clear. Remember, our YouTube audience and our podcast audience can hear us. As let's say hello quickly here to people who just came in. FU, Zaddy. FU. Susan Alloway, how are you? Hi, Fast Hemi. And who else has joined us here? The Ukrainian Anita. Thanks for coming on in. Anybody else? You know, Joe, you threw me off with that elephant comment. Now I'm getting shit from people in the chat room from some people.
I can't see the chat right now, but I figured that would stir a few of them up.
Yeah. You jerk.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, I just want to say hi to all the people there in the YouTube chat. Usually I'm right in the middle of it. And you people have grown on me. I like most of you.
Brian WC, how you doing? And who else? Kevin Kennedy, thanks for coming on in. And Dave Tiger Williams, good to see you. And I think we're caught up.
Yeah, it's really strange knowing that the chat's going and I'm here and I can't see it.
I know.
Very
it's weird.
Strange.
I'll watch it for you, buddy. I'll watch it for you.
All right.
Yeah. It's the kind of guy I am. I'm nice that way. I try to be, at least.
Yeah, those original days when I first started listening to you, I guess you were broadcasting out of a van down by the river.
Pretty much.
There were maybe 7-8 people listening. It was kind of fun back then.
Yeah, but that was only on a Facebook chat.
Oh, yeah.
I had about 30 or 40 on the other portions of it. That's when we were still quite new.
Yeah, it was neat. You could see your passion for what you were doing, but the equipment was killing you.
Oh, yeah.
There was always a technical problem, and that was kind of amusing.
Yeah, that was fun. Really enjoyed those days.
Blog Talk Radio.
Blog Talk Radio. You know what was funny is we'd get Blog Talk Radio would get hackers all the time. And I don't know how they did it, but they would hack in to all of these different shows, including ours. And they would, when you contact Blog Talk Radio, they would always act like, oh, that's never happened before. And be like, bullshit, I just talked to you about this like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Then they would flick some switch. It would be good for 6-8 weeks. And then boom, the hackers would come back in. All right, where are we here?
How many you have in the room tonight?
Well, there's 168 watching on YouTube right now. 200 overall. The Ferret, how you doing? I'd warn you too, Bomber. You're dangerous that way. Who else joined us? Kim Jellin, give us an update on how nice your teeth are tonight, please. Walter Kochabinsky, how are you, my friend? We got about just under a minute, Joe.
All right.
Mac Geek, how are you? All right. Dean P, good to see you. $27 seconds, bud. Search and Destroy, thank you for the super chat, along with Firewater and Deborah Rooney. Really appreciate the love and support. Don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. You can get your Bigfoot Hide and Seek champion shirt there, like I did. Here we go. Spaced Out Radio tonight. What's it like to have a weird, strange experience? My name is Dave Scott. Our guest is our good friend Joe Monk, a longtime listener of this show and experiencer as well. Before we get to Joe, reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. One of our longtime listeners is also an experiencer. His name is Joe Monk. He's a former geologist. He lives up in the northern eastern mountains of California near the Nevada border. And tonight, we're doing it a little bit different. It's all about the experience. And Joe, thank you for being here. Out of all the experiences you have had, I want to start off with your near-death experience, because this was extremely profound to you. What happened?
Well, one night I'm sitting here and I started having trouble breathing. And I told my brother, hey, I think you got to take me down to the clinic there and have them check it out. I don't know. I'm actually sick. And I'm one of those people, I won't go to go to the hospital unless, my arm is actually laying on the floor, severed from my body. Get there. They freak out. They send me over to the local hospital. And I apparently had a very rare form of pneumonia. And it was pretty bad. And I was in this hospital for maybe 14 days, and they didn't know what to do. And they sent me down to Sacramento, to Mercy Hospital. And I was there for a couple of days. Actually, I was there for 4 months. But a couple of days into being there, I remember being on a gurney, and they're pushing me down a hall. There's a doctor there. There's 3 nurses, and they wheel me into this room, and they're in that professional mode. They're yelling orders at each other. I can hear the beep, beep, beep machines in the back and all of that. And I'm thinking, wow, what's going on here? And they're really working. They're doing all kinds of stuff. And I thought, well, I'm getting a little tired. I think I'll just close my eyes for a minute. I open my eyes, and I'm standing on the edge of a forest. It was like an alpine forest up in the mountains, like maybe Switzerland or something. It was just beautiful. There was these huge pine trees right next to me. I'm kind of in the shade of the pine forest, and right in front of me, there's this huge field of grass. It just looked beautiful. And far into that, you can see the forest start up again, and it goes up to these big mountains. They're all snow covered. The sky is this vivid blue. And I'm standing there thinking, well, this is different. I was just in the hospital. Where am I? And I'm looking around, I'm taking it all in. And that's when I started to notice the colors. Everything was so vivid. The grass was the greenest green you've ever seen, and the bark of the trees was this red and brown pine. It was beautiful. The sky was an amazing blue. I don't think I've ever seen a blue like that. And everything was this sharp. It made everyday life look like 2D and black and white, just vivid and sharp and crisp. And a little bit of a breeze. I could see a cloud. I'm thinking, wow, this place is just beautiful. And I start to walk, and all of a sudden I notice there's somebody next to me. They walk in front of me. Now, you're probably already thinking ahead of, oh, maybe it was an angel or a dead relative or something like that. No, not at all. It was my ex-fiance. She's standing in front of me. I could see her, long blonde hair. She puts her arms up around my neck, presses up against me, looks into my eyes, and she says 3 words. Don't leave me. And I looked at her and I looked around and said, I'd never leave you. Wham. I opened my eyes. I'm laying in a hospital bed. I'm in a room. It's kind of subdued lighting. 2 nurses all of a sudden ran over to me and they're smiling and they're looking at me. And one of them says, welcome back. I looked at her and said, what do you mean, welcome back? Where'd I go? She said, oh, you were dead.
What? Just like that?
Just like that. Big smile on her face. She goes, oh, well, you were dead. And then they call the doctor. He comes in and he looks at me and goes, there's my 5%er. And I said, what's a 5%er? And he goes, well, 95% of the people who have this particular type of pneumonia die. 5% live. You lived. You were dead. And I just looked at him and he says, but you got much better. And I figured, okay, this guy's a Monty Python guy. You know, it's almost like out of one of the movies. You were dead, but you got better. And that has stuck with me. Like I was telling you before about the dreams, how I dream every night. And when you dream something, or at least for me, it could be the most vivid dream in the world. Driving on the road, going to a store, you're talking to people, whatever. But 5-10 minutes after you wake up, it fades out and you can't even remember what you were dreaming about. If I was an artist, I could draw that field. I can see it still in my mind, the colors. I could see Lorelei standing there in front of me. I could feel the breeze. And that was 12 years ago. And it's still like it just happened. That's how vivid it is. And the fact that I do remember it makes me think it did happen. I went somewhere. Maybe the afterlife. I don't know what you want to call it. But it was a good thing. No bright lights, no angels, no dead relatives. Just a beautiful alpine feel. I felt at home when I was there. But then I wasn't. I don't know if it was a decision that I made, saying I won't leave her, meaning I want to come back. I don't know what it was. Or maybe the doctors are just really good.
What did it feel like? Like you mentioned that it was peaceful. You mentioned it was beautiful, the brightest colors you ever seen. What did it feel like just being there?
Peaceful. It was like I belonged there. I wasn't startled. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't panicking, like, where am I? And looking around. It was blissful, I guess is the word you can say. I felt fantastic.
Kind of thing where you wish it would happen again?
Hopefully not too soon, but the experience has changed me. I've come to the conclusion that if I do die in the future, which we're all going to, that maybe this is what comes after. It's not oblivion. It's not sitting on a cloud playing a harp or something weird like that, and it's not fire and brimstone. It was just a really nice, peaceful place. I don't know if it's heaven or a transition to someplace else or another life. I don't have the answers to any of that stuff. Like I said, I just experienced it. I noticed it all. Do I have any answers for what happened or where I went? No, nothing like that. Nothing at all. But I think it's made me a better person. I'm not as angry as I used to be. I treat people better. It's kind of cathartic. Just maybe I've become a better person, or maybe I haven't. I don't know. I could be a jerk sometimes still, trust me.
Do you still have do you have a fear of death?
No, I don't. I know it's coming. I've always realized that people don't last. I've lost a lot of friends and relatives. I know it's going to happen someday, but I don't fear it. I just know that when it happens, it's going to happen, and there's nothing you can do about it. Why worry about things that you don't have any control over? Whether it's an afterlife or another life or another plane of existence, in my mind, I know you go somewhere. You leave whatever it was behind, and there's something else waiting. I don't have the answers to it. And there's one thing about this, just on a side note. A lot of people call it a near-death experience. They talk about their near-death experiences. I was dead. I wasn't near death. I was dead in the hospital, clinically called by the doctor, you're dead. So that's past near death. That's death experience. And it wasn't frightening at all.
Did you feel like it was heaven?
Well, it's hard to say what heaven might feel like, but wherever it was peaceful. It was almost like there's no cares in the world. There's nothing to worry about. You belong here. I felt happy, actually. I know I didn't see myself, but I know I was smiling. I was happy to be there. It was beautiful.
Right. Right.
And I wasn't worried about, oh no, and start panicking. Nothing like that happened. It was a good experience. As weird as that sounds, dying was a good experience.
Now, when you saw your ex-fiance on the other side, I'm going to assume naturally that she had passed, correct?
She has not passed. She is very much alive.
Oh, really?
And that's the weird. Oh, yeah. She's very much alive. She's still out there somewhere. I thought that was the weirdest thing, because every time I've heard a story about somebody dying and seeing, they see a tunnel of light. I didn't see a tunnel of light. They see dead relatives that they love that are beckoning them and saying, come to us, you belong here. I didn't see any of that. Didn't see any angels or anything like that. I see my ex-fiance, which we weren't really on best of terms at that time, and I thought, of all the people to bring me back, that's the weirdest choice in the world. And that's, in my mind, that should make people go, well, it must be true, because who the hell would make that up? I can picture what she was wearing. She had on white jeans. She had a pink and red striped little top on. I mean, it's just burned into my mind, that whole place, everything, the grass, the mountains. There was snow on the mountains. It was beautiful.
Place you want to go? You want to see
I don't
it again?
necessarily want to go there quickly. I'd like my life here. I'm going to try to stick around as long as possible. I'll go to death kicking and screaming and clawing my way back into this mortal coil. But when I do make it to the other side, if that's what I have waiting, that's fine. It's good with me, you know. Of course, for all I know, I walk out in the grass and a dinosaur eats me or something. Who knows what's going on there? But for the brief time I was there, it was wonderful.
Well, let's move on to another topic here, because I know later on in the show the audience does want to get into some questions for you.
Sure.
Okay, but let's move on here. You live in the Sierra Nevadas. Sierra Nevadas are obviously in our community best known for Whitley Strieber, or not Whitley Strieber, pardon me, Ronald Moorhead and the Sierra Sounds, filmed and recorded back in the mid 1970s, of the Sasquatch that are talking and whooping and yelling and hollering. One of the most incredible pieces of audio I personally have ever heard. You have had what could be Sasquatch experiences on your property. So let's first at least talk about your property a little bit, because you live in the middle of nowhere.
Compared to some places, it could be considered the middle of nowhere. I have neighbors maybe a quarter mile away. I can't see their lights. I don't see them. I'm at the end of the road on the top of a mountain. So there's no cars going by. There's no people stopping in. It's beautiful. It's pine and oak. And it's just beautiful up here. Clear skies, heavily wooded. And like you mentioned, Moorhead, he's never actually pinpointed exactly where he was, but he's given the general area of it. And I'd say that's maybe 50 miles south of me, maybe. Those recordings are amazing. But I've heard a whoop or two over the years. But when it comes to sounds, I've heard a lot of things in the woods. And like I said, there's no neighbors, and I never hear them. I never see them. But we have bear up here. We have mountain lions. I've had them right here. I've sent you pictures of them. They're right here by the house, probably 10 feet from where I'm sitting right now. But there are sounds in the woods that are definitely not those.
What kind of sounds have you heard?
Well, the one that I hear the most, and it's maybe once or twice a year, I like to call them the 500-pound or 800-pound owls. I can hear them from the south. It's downslope. I'll hear a hoot. And then I'll hear another hoot, and then another from another direction, and another. It's almost like there's maybe 4 or 5 big owls, and they're moving. And you hear them, they'll hoot back and forth to each other. And they get up close, and I've heard them, I can hear them go out in front of me through the woods, and I can hear them go behind the house through the woods. And the thing is, when they hoot, we do have owls up here. I used to have an owl for years when I was listening to Space Out Radio, would fly down and sit here about 10 feet away and listen to the show with me. I know what an owl sounds like. These owls, when they would hoot, you could feel your chest vibrate. It was a deep, deep hoot. I mean, there's no other explanation for it. But it sounded like there was a group of them, and they're moving from the south. They move through the property. They stay to the woods. It sounds like they're communicating with each other as they go along, and they slowly move up to the north and disappear into the woods up there. And this has happened maybe, like I said, maybe 2-3 times a year. And maybe it happens more often, but I'm out here almost every night. I like being outside. And my only guess is that it's a Bigfoot. There's nothing else that can make that noise, that can move like that through the woods at night. You know, there's no lights. It's not people making the noise. It's not cows. It's not deer. It's not the bears. And without a doubt, it's not owls.
You also had a horse.
Oh, yeah, Casey.
I remember one night there was you, there was Bill, and there was Elizabeth. One in Ontario, you in California, and the other in Colorado.
Mhm.
And you all had the same type of experience with your horse.
Yeah, I'd go out and feed Casey in the morning. And I'd say, oh, look, your mane's all messed up. And I'd go look at it, figure he got caught in the branches of a tree or one of the bushes or something. And I'd go up to him and I'd look, and the hair would be braided. Sometimes it'd be just a simple 3-strand braid, but it'd be the full length of his mane. And I thought, okay, that's really weird. That's the weirdest tangle I've ever seen. And how'd you do that? And then go out a couple weeks later, and there would be a more intricate braid. It's almost like 4 or 5 strands of hair. It's like somebody sat there and braided the hair. It's that simple. And I kept noticing this, and I for the life of me, I could not figure out what it was. And I remember telling the story on your show one night, or I think I said it in the chat room about the hairs being braided. And like you said, Bill popped up, and he said the same thing happened there. Elizabeth was saying it was happening out in New Mexico. I never knew braiding of horsehair was a thing for Bigfoot, but apparently they do it. Bigfoot and the horses get along, I guess.
Yeah, that's something that has, always baffled a lot of people. And there's a couple ways people I've heard describe it over the years. Number one, the Sasquatch and horses seem to get along. And number two, it's like part of a mating ritual. As disgusting as that may sound.
Yeah, I remember you had a guest come on and said that, and I was horrified. Poor Casey.
But here's the other thing too. I know a lady in town who is used to run a horse ranch here, and they believed that it was the fairies doing it. And she showed me pictures of it, but it was never intricate. It almost looked more like a dreadlock than it did a braid.
No, these were, if I thought it was like a dreadlock, because their manes do get messed up. You got to brush them a lot and all that. But this was an intricate braid, just like you'd see girls got a nice French braid or ponytail on her hair, or just one on the side with a little feather in it or something, It was, I kept noticing them, and it happened for years. And like I said, maybe it is fairies. I say I'm open to anything because I don't know the answer. Could it have been Bigfoot? Sure. Could it have been fairies? Sure. Could it have been some other creature that we're not even thinking about? That's possible too. But it wasn't natural. It didn't just happen. Something braided Casey's hair. And it was always the mane, never the tail. It was always just the mane. Usually just one, sometimes two. And they'd almost finish it off. I don't know how girls do that with the hair, and do a braid, and they put a little tie at the bottom, but something took some time and did it. And the horse never seemed bothered.
It's interesting how that seems to play out on the whole nature of it all. And what I like about it is it's just a beautiful story. Joe, hour 1 is done. We got hour 2 with one of our great listeners and his experiences with Facebook. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Joe, we're clear. I'm going to put you back in the green room. I'm going to take a quick break. All of you can try and move my chair. Don't leave because we're going to be right back with hour number 2. Hold on, everybody. I am back. Let's get Joe back in here.
Howdy, howdy.
Let's say hello to who's jumped in here.
Yeah, I had that story about the big footprints too.
Well, we're going to get into that.
Okay.
Jimmy DeLocke, welcome to our chat. No, I do not sit to pee. Thank you very much for your concern, though. Let's see here. Major Lee, good morning to you. Sensational Shelley, how are you? All right. Let's we got about a minute to go here, bud.
All right.
All right. Having fun yet, Joe?
I'm having a blast.
About time we did this.
Something about talking to you makes the stories just kind of flow out of me. I mean, normally I'm a pretty quiet guy, but I'll let you know. Yeah, I'll let you know anything you want, any questions, any stories.
Love it.
You make people comfortable.
Well,
like I said, from my vantage, it's just you and me sitting here. We're talking. If some other people can hear, that's okay.
Perfect. And we love you here, buddy. Thank you to Jeff, Search and Destroy, Firewater, and Deborah Rooney for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support. Here we go with the second hour, everyone. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate it. You're listening wherever you are on this beautiful planet. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Muggery. Muggery is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our guest tonight is a longtime listener of this show, as well as a longtime experiencer. His name is Joe Monk. He's a former geologist, lives in the Sierra Nevadas, and has had a number of incredible experiences. We're talking about Joe's Bigfoot experiences here. Now, Joe, you may not have seen Sasquatch, but you feel you have encountered him. There was one photo that you sent to me a long time ago, about a year or two ago, where you were hearing something strange in your yard, because you usually listen to the show. You're sitting in your carport. You got your beautiful Rottweiler dog Lola, who's your best friend, hanging out there, and all of a sudden she starts barking, and you take a picture, and there's two eyeballs just in the dark, way off in the distance. You remember that photo?
I do remember that. Like I said, sitting out here, I believe I was listening to the show when this whole thing happened. And she barked a couple times and then came up to me, sat next to me, and just started growling like she was the biggest dog on the planet. So I immediately took notice, because we do have bears and mountain lions that come up here. And so I stood up, I walked out to the edge of the driveway, and I took a picture with the phone. I'm looking, and it's maybe 100 feet to the edge of the woods. I figured maybe there's something out there. The deer wouldn't make her act like this, so there's something. That's why I like having a dog out here at night, to alert me if there's anything going on. And then I thought I heard something. I'm looking, and I couldn't see anything. Then I look at the picture I took, and it shows a set of eyes. They were glowing. They were white on the camera. I thought, this is so weird, and I kept looking and looking. Finally, I said, okay, I can't see anything. The dog's freaking out. It's sitting right next to me, and when I came over and sat down, it sat in front of me looking out in that same direction for about the next 15, 20 minutes. Then I got to thinking about it, and there's a security camera on my house, and it points in that direction, one of them. I said, I'm going to go check those security cameras. And I'm watching it, and you can see me walk out to the edge of the driveway. The dog is right next to me, and it's pretty dark, but you can see a set of eyes. But it's not out in the woods. It's a lot closer. It's maybe 40 feet away in the middle of the yard where these eyes are. In fact, I think I sent it to you, and I think Grant and a couple other ones where they all discussed it, looking at it. And the eyes were actually below the horizon of the meadow, or whatever you want to call it here, the grass area. So it wasn't something back in the woods. It was something that was right there in the middle of the yard. Now, there was a little bit of moon out, and if there was something out there, I would have been able to see it. And as I stood there, I never saw a thing with my naked eye. But it showed up on the picture I took with my camera, and it showed up on the security camera. Big set of eyes. I think they even blinked on the security camera. And what it could have been, I don't know. I have no idea. I think Grant's idea was there was a mountain lion because it was down low, maybe. But I went out the next day and sent you the pictures of me standing in that spot. And it could have been something really big there, but I just keep saying to myself, I would have seen it. But I didn't. So something showed up on the...
I remember about that photograph was you have a dip in your yard.
Yes.
That goes down about 8-9 feet, and these eyes were above that dip.
Right. Yeah, it's not a flat grass. I mean, I'm at the top of a hill, so there's like a little valley that runs down that's full of grass, and whatever it was big. But it's another one of those things. I've experienced something. I noticed something. Do I know what it was? No.
But there was no
Bigfoot? Was it a gnome? Was it a mountain lion? Was it a ghost? I don't know. And there's one thing that's popped into my mind since. Something else that it might have been. I do have a YouTube channel. Maybe Tim's there. He could pop up the link for you. I only have about 4 videos. One's of the dog. There's one of a bear walking across the yard. But there's something in one, and I swear you could see something cloaked, just like in Predator, that moves up from the grass, goes up, stands next to my truck, goes around the truck, and then down the driveway. And it's like a pixelated, odd, smoky thing. I thought maybe that's what was out there with those eyes that night.
Could have been.
Yeah, like I said, you notice it, but can I explain it? No.
Here's one of the things that I think people listening to you for the first time speak are might be reticent of figuring out. You have a scientific background. You're somebody who needs evidence, needs answers, and yet in this type of experience, there are no answers. There is really no evidence out there, or pardon me,
There is
proof.
none.
There's plenty of evidence, but not proof. How does this kind of shape your mind, having a scientific mind looking into this?
Well, that's part of my thing. Like I said, I'm a scientist, geologist, and if somebody says something, I want to see proof. Not like a troll on the internet, but I can halfway believe a story, but if you got a little something to go with it, like here's a piece of physical evidence, or here's, even photographs these days or videos, you can't believe anything you see with all the AI generated stuff. But I like to be able to have something to say, look at that. That's physical. Something did this, rather than you saw something in the sky, or you felt weird, like the prints coming from the garage at one time. That was a physical manifestation that something was there, something walked across the driveway, and it makes me believe. It's like, I didn't see it go through, but here's evidence that something did come through.
You found footprints.
Oh yeah, I was up late one night, couldn't sleep. Decided I'd been working on a riding lawnmower over in the barn, so I left the house, walked across the driveway, stayed over in the barn. It was a pretty I think it was a full moon that night, and the gravel driveway I have to walk across, it was very hard packed. I'm a big guy, 6'4", 260. I'd walk across that driveway, I wouldn't leave prints. Starting to get daylight, I thought, well, I'll go over and start some coffee. And I come out of the barn, I'm walking toward the house, and here's a line of, I don't know how many there were, 7 or 8 prints that were driven down into the gravel, maybe an inch or two, huge stride on them. And it walked all the way across the gravel and went down. And I stopped and looked, and I would have seen those when I went out there that night. I mean, it wasn't pitch black. There was a security light on the barn. I set that off. I would have seen these going out to the barn. When I come back, here they are. So something had come by while I was out there. So I got the first thing I thought of was, okay, man, get the camera out, take some pictures, put some things in there for scale. I have a boot and some water bottles. I got the tape measure out. I think they were 18 or 19-inch prints. And like I said, they were driven an inch or two into the gravel. And as much as I weigh, I don't even leave a mark when I walked across it. The curiosity got the best of me, and I says, okay, they're going down that slope, down the hill. And I walked down that way about 50 yards, just looking around at the ground. I'm looking around. I didn't see anything down there. It's like, okay. Came back up. I'm looking at the prints again. And I noticed the direction they came from was around the barn. So whatever it was probably walked around the backside of the barn, across the driveway, and down into the woods. So I followed the steps backwards. Walked over, got to the corner of the barn. I'm walking along, and that's when I realized there's 2 big windows in the barn, one at each end. Whatever it was walked right by that window. I was in there. The garage was all lit up. I was sitting at the other end at the workbench. Whatever it was had to have seen me, probably even watched me, which kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies a little bit. And then I looked right at the edge of the barn where the back and the side come together, and there was about a 20-foot oak, nice and straight, fairly young, maybe about as big around than my arm, maybe. And it was snapped off. And I reached my hand up, like I said, I could reach about 8 foot, and it was about a foot above my hand. It was just snapped and twisted off, and it was laying there. This was a healthy tree. There was no wind. There was no storms. There was nothing that could have fallen on it to break it, but there it is, snapped. So, like you said, do I need evidence? It's nice to have. Did I see something walk across the yard? No. Are there prints showing that something walked across there? Yeah, I could see the prints. And then the broken tree. It's like, okay, something come by, broke the tree, was watching me through the window, probably. I can't guarantee that, but it would have been hard to miss.
Likely, if the room was lit up,
Oh, yeah.
likely it
Yeah.
would have looked at you.
Yeah, it's a nice big, like 5-foot window, 4x5-foot window, and there's one at each end of the barn. I was sitting right in front of the other one at the other end. You couldn't not see me. So that it was kind of odd, and I've always, like I said, I've heard things in the woods. I've heard rustling. I've heard trees breaking over the years. I've heard some weird sounds. There was one sound, I mean, it's not the Sierra sound, but it was like a sonar, but it sounded organic. Like in the old World War II movies where the subs would ping a sonar. I heard that out in the woods one time. Maybe that's the noise they make. I don't know. But whatever this was, I had proof to myself anyway. I mean, the pictures are out there. If you, like I said, if you go on my YouTube channel, there's a little video that Sweet Robbie G put together for me. Put the photos together, put some nice music in the background. I really thank him for that. He's a sweet guy.
He is. He's
Yeah.
a gentleman.
And there's been times sitting in the house, the wintertime. The windows are all locked, doors are all locked, trying to keep warm inside. It's freezing outside. All of a sudden, there's a smell. Now, that's proof. That's a physical thing. There's something was creating a stink. I thought, immediately think, it's a skunk. I hate the skunks because we do have those up here. And then I said, wait a minute, that's not a skunk. That's something else. And the best way I could describe it would be a wet dog, a stinky wet dog, rotting meat, and a type of chemical smell, maybe sulfur or something. It's all mixed together, and it kind of makes your eyes water. And it was strong. So whatever, and I've had bears come by. I've been close to them. They don't smell like that. The deer don't stink. I don't think the mountain lions stink. And it wasn't a skunk. That's a very distinct smell. And it just lingers for a little while and then it dissipates. And I've always thought it might have been just a stinky old Bigfoot, and maybe they can sometimes release the smell to keep people away or to warn them. I've had other people say, oh no, that's some type of spirit that was stinking up the place. But whatever it is, it's the smell to me counts as physical proof that something weird's going on. It's always nice to have that.
I want to switch topics here.
Sure.
You got aliens, yet you refuse to admit it. Why is that?
I've never seen one. I've never seen an alien. I've seen a lot of things in the sky. I've seen a lot of craft, if you want to call it that. I've never seen anything land. I've never seen aliens get out of a ship. I've never had the memory of being abducted. It's possible that it's happened, but I guess people talk about the screen memories, or they make you forget. Well, if I do have aliens and they are coming by, whatever the screen memories are, they're blocking it good, because I've never felt like there was something in the room with me, or that I got attacked, or have any memories of that. But back to the evidence. I do have that. You had a guest on many years ago, and he talked about something. If you think you might be getting abducted at night, put a stack of coins on your dresser or your nightstand or something, and just say to yourself every night, well, if something comes by, if something abducts me, I'm going to knock the coins over. And I remember telling you, I'm going to do that. Because you've said, yeah, I mean, it's the famous saying, you've got aliens. You've been telling me that for years. So I said, I'm going to do the coin experiment. I've actually been running that experiment for, I don't know, was it 7 years ago that guy was on? Something like that.
Oh, that was 7, 8 years ago. So what the
Yeah.
experiment is you're supposed to put 2 coins. You can put as many coins as you want. And you either leave them unstacked or you stack them, your choice. And if you feel you've got aliens coming around, you kind of just say in a meditative state, just kind of put it out to the universe, hey, if I go tonight, could you, when you bring me back, please either stack the coins or have me stack the coins before I get back into bed? And you decided to try this. And what happened?
Well, I decided to do it. I have dollar pieces. They came out years ago with all the presidents on them. And I have a stack of maybe 10 of them. And it's still going on right now. I've had them there for the past 7, 8 years. Nothing's ever moved them. They've never turned over. A couple years ago, I don't know, maybe 2, 3 years ago, I think. I get up one morning, it's like, oh God, my leg hurts. And I look down at my leg as I'm sitting there on the side of the bed, and I've got these 3 huge bloody scratches. And they weren't like big fat scratches. These were like sharp nail scratches, and they go from my ankle all the way up to my knee on the inside of my leg, and they're bleeding. I was like, what did this? And I'm looking in the bed to see if there's something there. There's nothing there. I says, oh man, I get up to go into the restroom. I was going to wash the blood off. And I look, and there's the stack of coins. And they're all tipped over, all of them. I thought, okay, this has been going on for years. Those have never moved. And I wake up and I've got these 3 huge scrapes going all the way down my leg. They weren't scrapes, they were cuts. I was bleeding. Oh man, that's weird. I'm going to have to tell Dave about this. So I get up, I come out, get some coffee, and I'm sitting outside, and I think, oh, I haven't checked my game cameras for a while. I've got one that's maybe 60, 70 feet from the house on an oak tree pointing toward that meadow we were talking about earlier. I walk up to it and I look, and it's kind of bashed in at the top, and part of the lens is missing. I was thinking, well, what happened to this? I take it back in the house. I pull the chip out, and there's some normal pictures, and then there's a couple of just white pictures. And then the last one, there's something you really can't make it out. There's something right in front of the lens. But the camera's destroyed. I put the chip back in. I could not get the camera to work again. I mean, it wasn't bashed up that bad, but something had messed with it. And it was like the lens was half open and half shut, and it wouldn't manufacture. It was a Browning game cam. I ended up taking that camera and sending it back to the factory saying, look, it's not damaged that bad. It's just there's a little bit of nick on the outside, but I can't get this thing to turn on. I can't get it to work. Can I get a new one or something? Or can you fix it? I ended up getting a letter from Browning. They said, we've been looking at this for weeks. We've seen thousands of game cams that get sent to us. We cannot figure out what's wrong with this. It should work. There's no reason for it not to, but something fried this camera. So I've got the trifecta. I've got the scrapes on the leg. I've got the knocked over coins. And I've got the game camera that just won't work anymore for no reason. Like I said, the techs at Browning said this should work. They ended up sending me 2 brand new cameras. And that's kind of 3 pieces of proof that something happened that night. Do I have any memory of it? Do I remember being taken? Nope. Do I remember seeing anything? Nope. Did something happen? Absolutely. It was very strange.
Joe, we're clear.
Okay. Yeah, that was a very strange one.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Very, very good, man. Very, very good.
It's all your fault for making me do the coin experiment. And it's still running today. It's still running today. And like I said, for 7 years, they've been there. And that's the one day they were knocked over.
It's kind of cool, man. It's kind of cool. Very impressive.
Yeah, if it was just the scrape in the leg, okay, that's weird. If it was just the coins, I woke up and they were knocked over, okay, that's, who knows, they got knocked over. Or if the camera just stopped working, well, electronics stop working. That happens. But all three of them on the same night.
I had forgotten that you had sent that camera to Browning.
Yeah. And they sent me 2 new ones.
Did they ever ship the old one back?
No, I don't have. They kept that, but they said, part of there's a little cover over one of the infrared lights. There's a little corner of it got broken off, and they were wondering about that. But they said that mechanically it's weird that the lens was like stuck half open, like it was trying to take a picture, and it was stopped, and the actual electronics inside, I guess the chip or something had happened to it. And they said, we've never experienced anything like this. We don't know what happened to this camera, but because it's so interesting, here's 2 brand new cameras. And one of those got chewed up one night. It got chewed up. It looked like maybe a bear got it. I think, okay, yeah, bears, they eat cameras. That happens. But the thing is, I woke up, opened the garage door, and it's sitting right there where the door is, chewed up. It was on a tree that's maybe 100 foot away.
How high up was it?
Probably about 6 foot. And there was nothing on the chip. It was just a few normal pictures. Well, I think there was a black one, but I think the last one was all black. But something had chewed up. It's like, okay, bears eat cameras, no big deal. But why would a bear bring it up to the house and set it right by my door, right where I come out every day? That was odd.
It's very weird, man. Very oobish.
In fact, I've got a brand new one I've never even put out. I have to get that set up. And cameras are fun. They see things you don't know are around. I didn't realize we had bobcats up here until I caught one on the camera.
That's awesome.
Bunch of boo-boo bears, lots of deer, mountain lion, skunks.
It's rare to see a skunk up here, even though we have them. We got about 1:07.
All right. How's that room doing? Are they roasting me?
Yep. They're like, this guy is full of shit.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I've gotten to that point where, hey, this is my story. I'll tell you if you don't believe me. That's fine. Doesn't bother me one bit. If you get upset and don't believe a story, that's on you.
Right. All right. We got about 30 seconds. Big thank you tonight to Debaruni ×2, Firewater, Search and Destroy, Jeff Steve Garvey, and Cosmic Joe for the great super chats. Greatly appreciate your love and support, everybody. If you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe and ring that bell. We'd really appreciate it. And don't forget to shop at the Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You'll like wearing our stuff. It's good quality, too. Here we go. Here we go with the next half hour. Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. We greatly appreciate having you listening here, wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Joe Monk is a longtime listener of Spaced Out Radio. Almost 9 years he's been tuning into us almost each and every night. But he's also an experiencer as well. And right before the break, we were talking about how he has had experiences potentially with being taken. Now, Joe, I know you don't have any recall about it. You're a big dude. Nothing really intimidates you. But would you ever want to find out?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if aliens are coming around, I'd love to find out. I'd love to see one. You know, I'd fight one just for fun. If they're Bigfoot out there, I've heard them, I've seen things. I want to see one. As scary as that is, and I know the story goes, if you see one Bigfoot, there's 3 of them that you don't. I want to see one. I want to see an alien. I want to have a fresh, good memory saying, yep, there it is. But
how many times do you think you've been taken? I can, if I count all the times that you have got in touch with me with weird stuff that's happened, whether it's the scratches, the coins, the I think at one point you had the triangle dots, if I recall.
oh, yeah.
How many times do you think you've been taken?
I really can't guarantee that I have been taken, but I've had a lot of strange things where I say, what happened last night? Like I said, with the scratches, I've woken up with other scratches. There were some just a couple weeks ago. They look like scalpel marks on my knee. You saw those, right?
Yes.
They were like scalpel marks, and they almost looked like they had little sutures next to them. And it's like, there's no way anything could have done that. Now, there's one time in particular that I do think I might have been taken. I was working on a drilling rig over on the coastal range near Healdsburg, near the place called the Geysers. It was a geothermal drilling rig. I would work 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts, work maybe 80, 90 days in a row, and then you get off. So I get off one night, it's midnight. I leave the rig and go back to the motel room I was staying in. I mean, this place is desolate. It's nothing but forest as far as you can see. I'm in my car, and I just got in this car. I had to go through the whole thing, rework it. It was in bad shape, but I got it running really good. It was a 1976 Firebird silver. I'm leaving the rig, and it takes me maybe 20 minutes every night from the time I leave to the time I pull up in front of the motel room. I'm going along a little ridge. You can see down onto the coastal plain. It's just beautiful. The stars are out. All of a sudden, it's just like in one of those movies where you go along and the car starts shuddering and it just shuts off. And it's power everything. And I really had a hard time pulling the steering wheel so I can get over off the road. It was a little, almost 2-lane road. I was able to pull it off of the road. I says, oh man. And I immediately thought, okay, electrical problem. I get out, I smoke a cigarette. I'm looking around thinking, God, it's beautiful out here. There's no moon. You can see every star that's out there. Beautiful night. Pop the hood, got a post cleaner. I had one there on my tool bag. I cleaned the posts on the battery off. I cleaned the terminals off, wipe all that stuff down, bolt them back on. I get in the car, boom, it starts up. I was thinking, okay, great. I just had a bad connection on the battery. Continue on my way. Not thinking anything other than an electrical problem. I pull up in front of the motel room. It's still dark. I get out of the car and I'm looking to the west and I could see the tops of all the pine trees that surround this place. I'm thinking, the sky is light back there. Why? Well, maybe the moon's coming up or something. Okay, because normally it's just pitch black out there. I walk into the room. I look at the clock laying next to the bed. It was almost 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, I left the rig at midnight. 20-minute drive, and I spent maybe 10 minutes on the side of the road cleaning the battery terminals and smoking a cigarette. I should have been walking in the door around 12:30. It's almost 6 o'clock in the morning. Do I have any memory of something happened? Where did all those hours go? That's almost 5 hours just missing. That's your missing time. Was it aliens? Was it something else? I don't know. I didn't see anything in the sky. I don't have any weird marks on my body. But could have I been taken? That's possible.
The missing time thing scares me, man. There's
Yeah,
not much that scares me in this field, but that missing time thing scares me.
One that really blew my mind as far as missing time goes happened when I was up in Washington. I was up in Ocean Shores, Washington. At 10 o'clock, it's time for a smoke break. My boss looked at me and said, time to go smoke. We leave the shop upstairs. We're up on the third floor of this resort hotel where we had the shop. You walk down in the laundry, you go outside, we'd smoke a cigarette, talk for a minute, go back up to the shop. We walk in the shop, it should be, like 10 after 10. He looks at the clock, my boss, and he says, well, time for lunch. What do you want? What do you want me to call down an order? I looked at him and said, what do you mean time for lunch? It's like 10 o'clock. And I look at the clock and it says noon. I said, Lou, we walked down there. We were down there for 5-10 minutes and we came back up and it's 2 hours later. And he was about as curious as a fence post. He went, yep, that's weird. What do you want for lunch? Okay. I'm thinking something's wrong with me, or maybe I couldn't explain it at all, but it bothered me all day. So I go home that night, lying in bed. Art Bell was still on. This was back in the 90s. And he has viewer call in. People were calling in, telling stories. This one lady calls in near the beginning of the show. And she said she was in her kitchen in the morning around 10 o'clock. And she was cooking something on the stove, decided to feed the dogs. She went on her back porch, got the dog pan to fill it with food, walked back in. And the stuff that she was cooking on the stove was burnt to a crisp. It was, all the water desiccated out. It just burnt. I mean, she couldn't understand it because that would have taken hours for that to happen. And all she did was walk to the back door and walk back. And they started talking about missing time. She was up in Washington. Then more people called. And there was, it ended up the whole show. That's all everyone was talking about. And there was an area from maybe Vancouver down to the Oregon border, inland to maybe Seattle, and all along that western coastline of Washington, where people were telling stories about missing time, and it was all at the same time. And I wasn't thinking aliens. I was thinking some kind of government experiment or something that went haywire and zapped everybody 2 hours ahead. I don't know, but something like that was weird. It was very strange.
Do you think that you're just chosen for the experience, or do you think that you're tagged or implanted?
I have heard a lot of people talk about that. I am not aware of any implants or tagging. I think maybe this happens to more people than you think. I think it happens to a lot of people that have absolutely no idea. Like I said, the two missing time things there. The one I was on the road, something happened. I wouldn't have noticed it if I hadn't noticed it getting light behind the trees or the clock. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have known there was any missing time. Same thing with working up at the resort. I wouldn't have noticed it if I had just gone off and started doing some other work somewhere, I wouldn't have noticed that there was any missing time. I think it happens more often than people think. How many times, I mean, maybe people in the chat room, raise your hand. How many times have you said, what? It's 5 o'clock. I thought it was around 2 o'clock. Everybody's done that. Everybody said that. You know, you kind of think, wow, time must have just got away from me. Or maybe this is happening a lot. But people don't have that anchor, that one weird thing that makes them think, wait a minute, there's time missing. Why? Aliens? Government experiments? Some kind of weird natural phenomena? I don't know. Am I tagged? No, I don't think so. I think I just notice things. Like I said, I'm a noticer.
Out of everything that's happened to you, the near-death experience, the Sasquatch encounters, the UFOs, you got aliens, you've taken a lot of pictures of UFOs. Now, your house, I believe, is about 40 miles, 50 miles north of Beale Air Force Base, where the
Yes.
U-2 spy plane is kept,
Mm-hmm.
and where the old SR-71 used to fly out of.
Yeah, we used to see the SR-71 once in a while, but the U-2, it's almost a weekly thing, or maybe even a couple times a week, and they fly low because Beale is down in the valley, and when they take off to the west, they just follow the slope of the Sierras as it's going up, and they don't have that 100,000-foot altitude yet. They're still climbing when they go over us, and there's nothing makes a sound like that U-2. You can hear it coming.
But you've caught things that shouldn't be in the sky.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember one time when you were actually listening to the show and I was reading your comments as they were going on. And the funny part about it is that night we were talking about black triangles and
Mm-hmm.
people black triangles in the sky, and you just happened to look up and see a black triangle right above you.
Yeah, I've that one night, I could see it. It was off in the distance, but it was getting closer. It was definitely three lights. They weren't blinking. I was able to get a good picture of it. And there was another time. There were a couple of talons. There was 4 talons flying out of Beale. And I said, "Oh, well, look at them. They're in formation. That's really cool." And I snapped a picture. And I'm looking at the picture. And I was like, "Okay, yeah, they came out really good." And then you could see something weird, like some weird little probe, like a dragonfly carrying a lance, but it definitely was mechanical. That wasn't too far away from me, but it was in the picture. Just happened to capture it. Never saw it, but it's there. You have that photo. But as far as photos and weird things in the sky, the one that just blew my mind, everybody's seen dots. Everyone's seen maybe a little round thing off in the distance. A couple of years ago, we had a lot of fires up here. And all day long, you see the fire bombers going over and the helicopters. We even had the 747 strato tanker that was converted over to fight fires. Even that's flown by. And you sit and you watch all this stuff. So I was doing that one day. It starts getting dark. And when it gets dark, the planes have to land. They can't fly at night. And it had just gotten just about completely dark. And I'm sitting here and I could hear a rumble. It's like, God, that can't be one of the planes because they make a god awful noise when they go over. And I could feel it. And I stood up and I walked out in the driveway and I looked to the north over the barn and I could see lights from one of the fighter bombers coming in, to fight the fires. I was thinking, what is this guy still doing up? I know that they land at night because they don't have, night flying capabilities, for fighting the fires. And I'm watching and it's just over the barn and it's getting bigger. It's getting bigger. It's getting wider. I'm watching it come and I can still feel this deep, low rumble. And it's coming right toward me, really low. And it's really slow, I notice. Thinking that's really odd. I've been watching these planes fly around all day. That's going awful slow and he's really low. It gets bigger and bigger and the lights, and I realized that's not a plane. And I got the camera out and I'm trying to snap pictures. It's not working. It won't take a photo. This thing eventually floats over. It is so low that if I had my bow with me, I could have hit this thing with an arrow. And it floated over maybe 5 miles an hour over the house. And I had to actually turn my head from side to side, looking straight up to see both edges of it. It was a triangle, but it wasn't like an equilateral triangle. It was more like, and I hate to even say this because it sounds stupid, but if you've seen Star Wars, the big Star Destroyers that the Empire has, the big pointy triangle ships, it looked like I was looking at the bottom of one of those. And there were lights all over it. There were blue lights, there were green lights, there were red lights, there were amber lights. There's maybe, I don't know, somewhere maybe 15 different lights on this thing. And it just floated right over the top of me. And I never heard the big heavy noise of the engines or anything like that. It was just a low rumble. I would have said almost silent, but you can almost feel it in your chest. It went right over the top of me. I'm still snapping. I'm cussing at my camera. It was the most amazing thing. I mean, it filled the sky. It floats off to the south, gets smaller, disappears over the ridge to the south. And I look at my camera and I don't think I've ever been that mad in my life at a piece of equipment. And I picked the camera up, I pointed it at the house, hit the shutter button, click, it works. I get a picture. Whatever that thing was, when it went over, it stopped my camera from working. And after seeing that, it's like, okay, you see a dot in the sky, you think that's weird. You see something this big. I mean, it was massive. There's no doubt in my mind. Do aliens exist? Well, yeah, who built that thing? Who's flying that? Did I see the aliens? No. Did I see their ship? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw their ship. There's no doubt about it. I wasn't hallucinating. It was actually amazing. I felt special for being able to see that, but man, it was so strange.
Do you not think, though, just to play devil's advocate here for a second,
sure,
you're used to seeing strange craft come out of Beale Air Force Base?
Oh, yeah.
Because they're gaining altitude right over top of your house from the runway. Do you not think that maybe could be something to do with some sort of spy craft there?
It's possible, but if the U.S. government is building that thing that time that I saw, we're way ahead of what the public is aware of. This thing was massive. And there was another time, like I said, they gain altitude. There were a couple of, I believe they were F-15s, and there was 3 of them in a line. I was standing out there, and I could hear them coming up the valley. I was like, "Oh, some planes are coming." I walked outside to look. Here comes the first one. Boom! It goes over. Right behind it, there's a second one. Boom! Here's the third one. It goes over, and there is a round, metallic-looking ball, maybe the size of a beach ball, and it's behind the last jet. And it pulls up under the jet, and it makes like a barrel roll twice around it, and then shoots off to the south. It's like, what was that? You know, I'm looking at aircraft, and it's broad daylight. I don't know what that was. I don't think that's government. But as far as the black triangles, I'm on the fence about that. That might be ours. I've seen triangular shaped lights, and a couple of times where you could almost see that there was something in between the lights. So, the classic black triangle, a lot up here. Not lately, but I have seen them, and I think those might be ours. But I'm just guessing. Maybe we copied something. Maybe we reverse engineered something. I don't know.
But you're familiar with the sounds.
Oh yeah.
You're familiar with the sound of the U-2, the T-38s that fly over, the F-15s, the F-16s, the F-35s. You're familiar with all of those sounds.
Oh yeah. I mean, I hear it all the time here. I used to work at Fallon Naval Air Station, and I worked for years down at China Lake Naval Weapons Center. And we used to see the F-117 before it was released to the public. We'd look up and say, "What are those flying up there? Are those bats?" So I'm used to odd aircraft and seeing things, and I'm educated enough about things that fly to know that some of the things flying are not ours.
Do you think that maybe you get more of a view of these things because you live near a major Air Force base?
It could be that. I think I've got a great view because, like I say, it's pitch black around me. I'm outside right now. I'm looking around 360 degrees. The only light I can see is coming from my house. There's not a light anywhere. There's no light pollution. There's no air pollution. It's just a beautiful sky out here. You can see everything. Before that, I spent years and years out in the desert. Same thing. There's no light pollution. You can see, and people are usually looking down or busy with what they're doing. I'm always looking up. I'm always looking around. I notice things. I could look around and say, well, that is not a satellite. That's not an airplane. So it's something else.
It's totally something else. We just don't know what it is.
Yeah. I think if anybody would spend as much time as I do outside and looking up and listening too. Sometimes you hear things. That's when you notice them. Anybody could do this. I think people just aren't paying attention.
It's easier to look down at a phone than to look up in the sky.
That's the truth right there. Although I do have a bad habit of looking down at my phone from 9 to midnight, Monday through Friday, watching Spaced Out Radio.
Well, we
Oh,
love
by
it.
the way,
Joe, break
by the
here.
way, Dave has a plethora of ugly swag.
No, there's nothing ugly there. Joe, we're going to go to break here at the top of the hour. If you want, I know your 2 hours with me is up. The Lee Strauss is here. We hope you can stick around.
Yeah.
Swamp Water and extra small Lee Strauss coming up next on Spaced Out Radio.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Joe, if you want to stick around with Lee and myself, you can.
Sure.
All right. I don't think Lee would mind.
I'll hang around.
All right. I'm going to put you in the background with Lee, and I'll be right back, okay?
Radio.
All right. Be right back, everybody. All right, we got about a minute to go here. Swamp Dweller, just so you know, is just under 7 minutes, Joe and Lee, and then we'll bring you on, okay? Just under 7 minutes. Thank you tonight to Major Lee, Cosmic Joe, Deboruni ×2, Jeff Steve Garvey, Search and Destroy, and Firewater for the great super chats. Really appreciate the love and support. I have not skipped the questions, guys. Joe is sticking around, so I'm going to play those questions or ask Joe those questions when we get Lee on here, and you guys can judge Lee tonight and his performance by how tight his shirt is. Lee's a workhorse, man. Love the guy. Love the guy. So privileged to have him on our team. Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Monkery. Monkery is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. It's that time of the night for us to head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. In April 1997, I was 16 years old, a sophomore in high school, and had just gotten my first little used car. I worked 2 jobs to pay the payments and insurance. My parents' marriage of 20 years was going down the drain, leaving my brother and myself to our own devices. We lived in a small town, so unfortunately we drank and smoked weed to look fantastic and deal with our depression over our parents' divorce. Jamie and I were only 16 months apart, so we hung out in the same group of friends and we were always together. Unfortunately, I started seeing this guy 6 years older than me, so he was 22 at the time, and he was just bad news from the jump. He had yet to graduate from school or have a job or car, so he spent his days looking for girls to ride him around and play basketball. My dad had moved out of our house, so my mom had become lax with the rules, and she sometimes let B stay the night as long as he slept on our couch. One night during a school week, my mom said no to B staying over and told me to drive him home. He lived about 15 minutes away from my house, so even though I didn't want him to leave, I knew my mom meant business, so B and I left my house around 10 p.m. Now, to make you understand this a little bit better, I will describe the road we had to drive on the best way I can. We lived in a little town in West Virginia that was sandwiched between 2 slightly bigger cities, but there was only one road that connected all of these towns, Route 60, and it was just a narrow 2-lane road with lots of blind curves and hills. Nevertheless, it was the main thoroughfare for all the traffic, including tractor trailers that hauled food, coal, and wood. Driving it was no big deal if you had grown up there, but to outsiders they often remarked how the road nauseated them. Anyways, the night I was driving B home was a clear night, not much traffic, and I was going around 45 miles. The speed limit was 55. I rounded a slightly sharp curve and was blinded by another vehicle's bright lights, and suddenly there was a loud boom, and I remember seeing 2 legs fly up in front of me. I immediately pulled over the car to the side of the road. thinking I had hit a deer, and I kept asking, "B, what did we hit? What was that?" Finally, we both jumped out of the car and turned to look at the road to see what I had hit. A woman was lying in the middle of the road. She had a tiny little girl that was about 20 feet away as well. I could tell they were not moving. My brain and body just went on autopilot. I ran to the nearest house, where it just so happened one of my best friends lived, and I shouted to them to call 911 and told them I had hit 2 people on the road. I was crying and shaking uncontrollably. I called my mom, and she said she was on her way. My friend and I ran back up to the road where B had managed to stop traffic from both directions. I remember walking over to the little girl. She had blonde hair and a beaded necklace that said Hannah. Her eyes rolled back in her head, and I knew she had head trauma. While waiting for the paramedics, I took stock of the scene around me. In the lane opposite the direction I had been traveling sat a pickup truck with a camper top, and it was parked right smack dab in the middle of the road. One of the headlights was out, and the other was on high beam, hence why I couldn't see the vehicle very well. The driver's side door was opened, and the woman's car CD player was repeating blasting Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train over and over. I finally yelled for someone to please turn it off. I don't know who finally did it though. After what seemed like forever, emergency personnel arrived and the mother and daughter were airlifted to trauma hospitals. I'm going to stop right here for now before I tell you the rest of the story, as I've written quite a bit, and I'm not even sure if anyone is interested. But if you'd like to know what happened and why the people were in the road, please feel free to let me know, and I will gladly share the rest of this traumatizing story. Here's the rest to those who are interested. The next day, we were updated that the mother had broken ribs, broken legs, and some internal damage, but the little girl Hannah had died from the head trauma. I was devastated. The case would be presented to the prosecuting attorney to see if I would be charged with possible manslaughter or vehicular homicide. I was just a teenager. They brought my car home to me. There were still strands of blonde hair in my right headlight. I had horrible nightmares where I would see legs flying up before me. I started gritting my teeth so hard that my upper jaw shifted. I was put into counseling with an excellent psychiatrist. Meanwhile, the state brought in a team of investigators that measured the markings on the road, i.e. where my car was, where the people had landed, etc. I waited in fear to see what my future would hold. Finally, all the evidence was submitted to the prosecuting attorney and the judge, and it was decided that it was a total freak accident that couldn't have been avoided. I wouldn't be criminally charged. It was a huge relief, but I felt so bad and responsible. I couldn't drive for at least 10 months. In the meantime, the woman's insurance company sued my insurance company, so we had to go to court to give depositions. It was terrible reliving that night, but we found out a lot. We discovered the woman, Jody, wasn't even supposed to have her daughter. She had previously lost custody of her, and the father had her. Jody had taken Hannah from her father's house and had been riding around in that truck for 3 days. Jody had been in mental health hospitals for her whole life. The reason she gave for being in the middle of the road that night, there was a dead possum in the street and her daughter was an animal lover, so they stopped to move it out of the road. A precious little girl lost her life over roadkill. My insurance company didn't award Jody any money on her part for being negligent, but they did award $50,000 on the roll for Hannah. This tragedy has affected my entire life. I am now 41 years old and still can't drive at night. I just think that this story might be interesting to some people. It's strange, dark, and mysterious. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another great story. As we love starting off hour 3 of Swamp Dweller each and every night. If you want more, just head on over to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller. Hit subscribe, ring that bell. He's got thousands of stories for you just like that. All right, let's get to the next half of the show.
Oh, hello, Jackie.
Extra small Lee Strauss filling in for Jackie Harmon, who is down in California, usually without power right now, and cell phone service and internet service due to what's going on there. So tragic out in the Los Angeles area and all around right now. But Lee, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, and definitely my prayers go out to her and anybody else down there who's having to deal with this.
And Joe Mugg, thank you for sticking around, because we didn't get to audience questions yet. There were a number of them for you.
Okay.
He's so excited. He's so
I just have to say, oob, that's one tight shirt, Lee.
This one is a large.
Yeah, children's large.
Do they make spaced out radio shirts in children's large?
I don't think so, but
No.
hey, it's all good. So all the parents out there, Lee, you're a parent. Joe, I know you're not. Well, maybe, I don't know. My son calls me
God.
at work today after school. Probably around 4:45, he gives me a phone call. My son's 11 years old. He's in grade 6. And he goes, hey, Dad, are you coming to my hockey game? I'm like, yeah, I'll see you there after work. Okay, great, Dad. I just wanted to make sure. Oh, by the way. And when you get the, oh, by the way, you're like, immediately your hackles go up.
No.
He goes, I have to tell you something.
Oh.
I'm like, okay. He goes, I got sent to the principal's office today. And I said, how come? Now, all of a sudden as a parent, you start, thinking of all the things. Did he get in trouble in class? Did he get in a fight in school or whatever it might be? He goes, well, my teacher kicked me out of the classroom because I kept farting today, and it was really stinky, and they had to open up the doors in order to get her out of the classroom. And she was so mad at me, she sent me to the principal's office for an hour.
Wow.
So I'm like, dude, I'm trying to hold a straight face here. I'm like, dude, are you just telling me a story, or did this really happen? And he goes, no, Dad, it really happened. I'm like, you ripped one and literally blew your classroom apart. He's like, yes. I said, son, I'm not even mad.
You should be proud of that boy.
Oh my gosh.
So I think I'm more mad that my child's school did not call me to tell me that my son was disciplined and kicked out of class for an hour and had to sit in the principal's office than I am about him, kifing and nearly, asphyxiating half the classroom and his teacher. Oh man.
Wow.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him. So I told him that I was going to share that story with our audience tonight, and he just started laughing. He's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to." I said, "That's a proud moment right there, son." Oh my goodness! Just about. I mean, how do you get mad at that? Right?
You can't be. You can't be.
That was an oob moment.
And the funny part about it is, I got a pretty wry sense of humor. I don't usually let it out on air, but I got a pretty wry sense of humor. And every day for the last, well, he's in grade 6, so for the last 5.5 years, I ask him every day, did you rip one in class today? Right? Usually he's like, Dad, get out of here. Shut up, Dad, or whatever. And today, karma got me. Karma got me. Oh my gosh. So I have to share that with you guys because it was just funny. Absolutely funny. So, I thought you would enjoy that story. Lee's like, can we move on?
No, I'm good. That's great. I mean, I'd be proud of my son too, but I don't think I'd say it in public.
You have to hope that one of those kids in the classroom had their camera going and caught that thing on, a good video. That would be hilarious.
Oh, with the teacher?
In elementary school.
Yeah, the teacher actually yelling at him for farting and sending him out of the classroom. That would just bust the internet wide open.
Oh yeah. Too much Taco Bell, Dave. Julie.
Some of the comments in the chat room
is fantastic.
Some of the comments in the chat room. I got to read some of those here. Let's see. Skip says, "Be proud, Dave." Boz Monster, nasty. Hillbilly Herb, poor kid. Vanessa, get out a class card. Dead fish, and you've already met the boy. Plaid Koala, what did you feed him? Nicole Sackich, that's awesomeness. Buzz Monster, Crop Duster, Firewater, Dave's a proud father. Oh my goodness me. That is absolutely amazing. So thank you for allowing me that time to laugh there. Oh, here's one. Super Kaboom or Karoom says, ask him if ghosts were pulling his finger. Oh, my goodness. Yes, this show has gone downhill fast. Oh, man. He must have kept it going on the ice tonight because he played really hard in his team's 6-1 win. So that was pretty good. Oh, my goodness. Oh, man. All right. Well, Lee, before we get into some UFO stuff, because I wanted to ask you a couple questions about this. And Joe, you could chime on in when we get there. But I got some audience questions for Joe here. Okay, about your experiences. Joe, NHI is asking, would you talk to the beings today if you had a choice?
Oh, absolutely. If there was something there, I'm asking questions. I'm firing all kinds of things. I want to know. I want information. I mean, who wouldn't? I would definitely talk to those guys or mind think, however that works. Maybe even with the Bigfoot, people talk about they do the mind speak. I'd love to talk to those guys.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Deb is wondering, Joe, going back to your near-death experience, have you ever tried to draw that field?
I thought about it, and, I'm not much of an artist or anything, but I was in a hospital, a different one. I was going to see somebody, and they had a bunch of paintings on the wall, and they had one that looked very similar. It was kind of an alpine meadow, something you see in Bavaria, or I don't know, The Sound of Music, maybe. Maybe if I can get together with an artist, I could explain to them and they could draw it. That would be great.
All right, let's move on to another question from Hillbilly Herb. Joe, have you ever had any DMT experiences, and did it feel like the same place as your near-death experience?
Oh, no, nothing like that. I'm pretty much drug-free.
You do like the kokanee beer, though.
I do love the kokanee beer, and I did find out that you have to look on the can because the Bigfoot's not always in the same place.
It was funny because my favorite beer is kokanee beer when I have a beer, which is rare. I think the last beer I had was sometime early last year. No, summertime I had one. And a few years ago, I kept bragging about kokanee beer, how you have to drink it ice cold. And I had some friends going down to see Joe. And I said, well, here, bring some kokanee beer for him. And I got him a 24 pack. And Joe had those polished off in like 2 days, 3 days, I think. But it was good.
Well, you can't let it go bad. You got to drink it while it's still fresh and cold.
That's true. All right, let's go to Anastasia. What's the worst thing to do around a Sasquatch? Joe,
Suppose make them mad. Don't poke them with a pointy stick.
No. What do you think, Lee?
I don't think, even if you're going into an area where there's possible Sasquatch, you don't want to be thinking about anything negative either. Because they'll pick up on it.
And it would be stupid to try to do something to physically harm one.
Oh, yeah.
Just from everything I've heard, they don't travel alone.
No.
So if you do happen to see one, there's 2 or 3 of them around that you don't know they're there. And they know where you are long before you've ever noticed them.
Reminds me of Jurassic Park,
Oh, yeah.
And the raptors, how they would circle around their prey.
Clever girl.
Yeah.
I think I would say firing a gun in their vicinity. Like when you know they're there.
Not a good idea.
I think that would be a dangerous part of being close to them, because they are going to take that, I believe, as a sign of aggression.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't want anyone to have to do that. I mean, if you take at verbatim what happened in the Mount St. Helens Ape Canyon incident, that where they started firing guns at them, that only made them more extremely aggressive to get those miners out of there.
Don't shoot them. It just makes them mad.
Yeah, I think it would take a substantial caliber to take a Bigfoot out.
Yeah,
I'd say don't approach one either. If you do see one, don't walk closer to it. Stand your ground, maybe walk away. Keep your head down, maybe.
Yeah, keep your head down. Don't make eye contact is what they say.
I'd make eye contact. It would look at me. I would look at it. We'd bat eyelashes.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On will start playing. It's going to be romantic. Totally romantic.
Give them a taco.
If I could have a taco with a Sasquatch, I totally would.
I love the drawing of you running from Sasquatch with the Taco Bell bag.
Yeah, Tim James made that, which is kind of cool. Very cool. Gentlemen, I'm going to get you hold on right there, because we are going to go to break. We're through audience questions, but we're just going to continue on here because Joe loves telling the story when I went to Tim Hortons instead of going to a UFO. He was there that night listening in when Carl returned to my house. We'll get into that a lot more. Lee Strauss is here as well, the extra small one, filling in for Jackie Harmon. We'll be right back, everybody.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, guys, we're clear.
Yeah, I just want to say, Lee, it's a pleasure to be here with you, and I love listening to your stories of you and Jackie going up and looking for the Bigfoot. camping up in the woods there. I just love those stories.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff. You know, that was one adventure that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. And, you know, hopefully I can do more of that back in that same area and bring it to you guys live while I'm there.
And always keep the vehicle pointed toward the road.
There, it's always pointed towards the road.
Joe, I apologize. We got 2 more questions from our audience coming in to the next
Sure.
half hour. Anastasia, did you like your answers?
I feel bad I had to put Lola in the house tonight. She was very vocal right before the show started.
How is Lubla?
She's a fantastic little pup. Still guarding the secret spaced out headquarters. I'm gonna throw a picture of her up. Let the YouTube people see it. The little baby shark.
Let me see.
Thank you, Nikki.
Where's a picture of Lubla here? Hold on. Where is she? There she is. 1 second here. Is that the one? Yeah, right there. There she is.
That's my baby.
Yeah, there she is. Lubla.
Oh, and right behind her, that's that grassy slope where the eyes were.
Yeah. You didn't include that photo, did you?
No.
Yeah, you did. Here they are.
Oh, maybe I did.
Here they are. Hold on. Shoot. I always do.
They were
this.
very dark. I had to lighten them up a lot.
There's the eyes from that same area. Same area there.
Ooh.
And they're bright, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Figured maybe 40 feet away, and I couldn't see it. I'm standing just on the left of this picture. There's 2 blurry things there. I think that was just from the camera, but
Yeah.
something there. I've gotten a lot of pictures of eyes in the woods, and a lot of them you look at and go, well, they're close together. That's a raccoon. That's probably a deer, you know, but every once in a while, there'll be a wide set of eyes, you know. It's almost like they're a foot apart.
Wow.
So that's something with a big head. I don't think they live in the area all the time. Like, you know, they don't live over on the other side of the hill or something. I think when I notice them, they're just passing through.
What part of the country are you in?
I'm just west of Lake Tahoe in the Sierra Nevada mountains.
Yeah.
Nevada County.
Yeah. You definitely have some squatch there. Sasquatch. Sorry, I got to say it correctly.
Oh, he said Squatch.
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. Jeez.
Next thing you know, he's going to UAP us.
No, I won't be doing that.
Yeah, he's going to UAP the hell out of us right now.
Well, friends don't let friends. UAP.
That's a great shirt, by the way. Both Tim and I got one.
Yeah.
It's a great shirt. Thank you tonight to Michael Gutierrez, Major Lee, Deboruni ×2, Firewater, Cosmic Joe, Search and Destroy, Jeff, Steve Garvey. Appreciate the love and support. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag, So go check it on out. We got good stuff there. You'll be happy with it. I promise. Nothing ugly. Coming extra small too.
A plethora of ugly swag.
Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us all night long. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Joe Monk, our guest, is still with us. Extra Small Lee Strauss is here for the Crypted Report. And we're going to take just two more questions for Joe tonight, Lee. Then we'll get into some juicy stuff. Joe, this one comes from Lee in the UK. If you had a definitive evidence of a cryptid, how would you release that, or would you keep that to yourself?
I've thought about this, and I would not keep it to myself, but I wouldn't necessarily release it to the world on the internet, telling everybody about it and going on book tours and all of that garbage. But I would tell you people. I would tell the people in Spaced Out Radio. I'd tell Dave. I'd tell Lee. I'd let you know what was going on. But do I want publicity? No. Do I want fame? Absolutely not. I just let this small group of friends on Spaced Out Radio know everything about it, but that's about it.
Lee, would you release it if you had the video?
I think I'd probably just hand it over to you and let you do it.
I'm going to look at it. That's cool. I said I would just look at it and say that's cool.
That's worth it. Like I was going to say, those Bigfoot prints, I had originally sent those into Coast to Coast, and they published them on their front page of their website. And I got a call from one of the local radio stations, or not a local radio, but a local news station out of Sacramento. And they wanted to come up and do a story. And I said, well, okay, but I don't really want my location broadcast. And they said, oh, well, we'll have to tell everybody exactly where this happened. And I said, well, then you better stay in Sacramento, because I'm not going for that.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, final question from Brian. Joe, do you think that some drones are capable of using microwaves or sound waves to harm people? I don't know what that has to do with our talk tonight, but we'll ask it anyways.
I'm sure that some of the drones have capabilities, probably the ones that the U.S. government has created, because they weaponize everything. As far as drones that are alien, I have no idea. They could pretty much do to us anything they want at any time, apparently. So I don't know why they'd have to microwave us, or maybe they do use sound to make us forget things. But I would say the human-made ones, absolutely. All kinds of weapons. They've probably got some with pointy sticks on them. But the alien ones, I don't know. I think they're just looking at us and checking us out.
Yeah.
You there, Lee?
Well, like Joe was saying, the alien ones, I'm sure, since they turned off nukes and that sort of thing, I mean, that's very possible they could disrupt, with their electromagnetic ray or whatever they're using.
Exactly.
Disrupts a lot of our equipment and that sort of thing. But as far as the let's say the human built ones, I'm sure they can carry a sonic fart.
All right, one final question. This one comes from Deb. Joe, what is your favorite movie musical?
Paint Your Wagon.
And here I thought you were a Jesus Christ Superstar fan.
No. Anytime you can get Lee Marvin and Clint Eastwood singing, that's a classic. And that was all where they filmed that. That was all up here where I live. And that's the area it was supposed to be, the gold rush and the 49ers and all that.
My psychic ability is kicking in for Lee here. Definitely High School Musical. Definitely. You got that right. Little Zac Efron action there.
I don't even know where to go with that one.
Dude's 5'1", the team's basketball star. I wouldn't mess with him now. He's pretty big. But back then, about your height, Lee, you could dunk on him.
I'll take that challenge.
All right. Here's an interesting one for you in the cryptid world. The television show Expedition Bigfoot has a new toy out that they are using to walk through the forest. And it's one of those robot dogs. They believe that the robot dog, because it walks like a dog, can be able to sneak up on this elusive creature. And they're trying it out. Lee, you're shaking your head. What do you think?
Those things actually make quite a bit of noise, believe it or not. You know, just the gearing and whatnot as it's walking along. Bigfoot's going to see that and hide from it. It's going to want nothing to do with our technology like that. No way.
Exactly. I mean, they avoid trail cams supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
And like Lee said, those things make a lot of noise. It isn't sneaking anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I could see is maybe positioning it somewhere and leaving it there, and it sits there quietly. Maybe cover it with brush so just the cameras can look around, but it's not going to sneak up on anything.
No.
So what they used it for was they were in this cave system, and they believe there may have been Sasquatch in that cave system. So they sent the robot in to see if they could find the Sasquatch. And obviously, as per every television show, they did not. But I have an issue with this. Okay, maybe because I'm a pretty basic guy. All right. If it's loud, if it's different, the Sasquatch aren't going to pay attention to it. Like, it's almost like they're trying to like stir it up and everything. And that's what I understand for the television shows. They have to do that because they need that entertainment factor. They can't do Sasquatch research the way it normally is done, because realistically, you're standing out in the forest and every few seconds you're turning around to look in a different direction. That's boring. It's very boring. So you got to do silly little gimmicks like this to see if they actually work. But to put, like, what do those things cost? $100 grand, $200 grand, something like that?
Yeah, probably not. I wouldn't say they're 100,000. They're probably around 60, 40,
Okay.
60.
All right. So $100 grand Canadian. 100 grand Canadian. $8 American. All right. And yet here we are looking at these things, sending them down. I realize it's entertainment factor. I do get that. But it really also goes to show that the people who are on television are very unidirectional in their thinking. They're not thinking of anything else but nuts and bolts, flesh and blood, wondering where this creature is. Joe, what's your thoughts?
I think the robot dog is a ridiculous use in this situation. As far as technology goes, the one thing I'm thinking is to use a combination of drones. You have one flying high over the forest, maybe even in the daylight when they think there's something in the area, or they hear something. It can go over and maybe spot something, or at night maybe use thermal. And then you use one of those little racing drones that those guys have to whip through the trees and get up close and try to see something. Those things are fast. And if they can get some professionals out there, the guys that race those things, they can get through the trees and the branches. I think, yeah, they do make a lot of noise, but they're quick and they might be able to get to something before it runs away.
I've got an FPV drone, and yeah, talk about quick. Yes, abso-freaking-lutely. They're incredibly quick, but trying to race it through trees, that thing's gonna crash and burn.
Or race over the trees and then dive into the area where the other drone saw the heat signature, maybe.
Yeah, they're super. Yeah, like you said, they are super, super loud compared to other drones.
Well, look, I think the drone technology and looking for these things is a smart move. I think it's a really smart move using the drones to kind of search, and it's allowing you to cover way more area than ever before.
They should send the little drone into the cave instead of the dog.
There you go.
Well, that's just for television. I mean, the Discovery Channel for certain shows doesn't have a small budget. You know, for certain shows, they are going to allow things like that to happen. So to get that in there, I mean, that's just pure aesthetics. They're not solving anything with it. It's just pure aesthetics.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on here. I don't know if you've ever heard the story of Carl, Lee. Have you ever heard the story of Carl? Alien Carl, not human Carl in our chat room?
I may have. You'll have to refresh me.
Okay. So April 20th, 2015, I'm doing the radio show.
I was watching that night.
Interviewing a gentleman named Harvey Kraft. We're talking Buddha. And in my old studio that I had in a makeshift studio that's an old bedroom in my house, which was right beside my front door, it was the third night in a row I hadn't turned my outside lights on. And I'm a guy who always turns the lights on outside. I like having light outside. And for some reason, it was night number 3. Didn't turn my lights on. And I'm doing the show, and I'm facing the corner in between where my front door would be on the other side of the wall and the window to my left. The window to my left's about 3 feet away. And I see something at about 10:05, 10:06 at night, because I only broadcasted for 2 hours at that point.
Okay.
Started at 10 o'clock, ended at midnight. And what I did was I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. And immediately in my head, I'm thinking, crap. One of our friends came over. They know I'm doing a radio show. They know where the studio is in the house. My dogs are going to start barking. I have a Chihuahua dachshund at the time where a crosswind was 30 minutes of barking. Okay. Just a barkaholic, that thing. And I loved her to death. But the issue was that there was no barking. So after a couple minutes, I put my microphone on mute because I'm like, this is strange. I saw something move outside. Okay, like a person move outside. The dogs aren't barking. So I swivel my chair to take a look out the window to see who's there. And there is a giant alien gray head staring back at me. And I did what any man would do. I screamed like a banshee and fell back in my seat, and I nearly had my seat fall over. And then I jumped up to take a look. It was gone. In the meantime, in my headphones, because I got my microphone on mute, in my headphones, I'm hearing Harvey talking blah, 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 away. So that was the name of Carl that I named him. He needed a name, and I chose Carl. Well, 3 years later, I'm doing the show again, and Joe still bugs me about this. And I could feel Carl is back. It was about 11:35. Olaf Phillips is my guest. And I'm like, Olaf, Carl's back. I can feel him. I can feel him all around. I couldn't see him out the windows, but I could feel him. So we sign off from the show. I got Olaf on the phone. I walk through my house underneath my carport. And I'm standing there at the edge of my carport. And my two vehicles are parked down below because I have a tiered driveway. And I see this giant orb, probably, I'm going to say 2.5 to 3 feet, giant orb. And it's like the Nike swooshes, one and then reverse the other one. And it floats right in between my vehicles from back to front and then front to back. And then it took off up my driveway and disappeared. So I'm explaining this all to Olaf on the phone. And I said, I'm going to walk over there. Dude, that was the longest 25 feet I've ever walked. I was scared as anything because it's just me. It's about 12:10 at night. And I got this stuff going on. I walk in between my vehicles. There's nothing there. So now I'm really creeped out. And I'm like, Olaf, I got to go. I got to call our Keith Andrews. See what's going on. So I run back inside, like run. I'm not a fast runner, man. But I sprinted back inside, closed the door, locked the door, go upstairs, come out my top door to my patio. And I'm looking into my backyard. And just like the movie Signs, when you hear the aliens talking in the cornfield, that I'm listening to that in my backyard and up my driveway like a conversation. So I call up our Keith Andrews and I'm like, dude, you're not going to believe what's happening here. And Keith, just like in 2015 when I called him after Carl showed up the first time, answers the phone. He had got up to get a drink of water when I called.
Yeah.
Usually he's asleep. So all of a sudden, after about half an hour of this, I'm fast forwarding because we're running out of time. I get this urgent feeling that I need to go hop in my car and go down to the local lake, which is about 2 miles down the road, and sit there and look. And they're projecting in my head like I'm going to see a mothership. And I've got Keith on the phone. I'm like, dude, I'm getting called here. This is incredible, right? So I pull out of my driveway, go down to the end of my street. I'm supposed to turn right at the stop sign. But then I think about it. I'm like, no, if I'm going for a ride and I'm going to see this, I'm going to Tim Hortons. So I hang a left, drive into town. Our Tim Hortons is 24 hours. Grab a donut, grab an ice cap, then drive all the way back to the lake. And I sat there for 45 minutes. And I wasn't getting out of my vehicle because at that time of year, the paths around the lake become very busy at night with coyotes, with bears, mountain lions, because all the deer have their youngins in that area. And old Davy wasn't going to be food, and I wasn't fighting my Tim Hortons over with a bear. Was not doing that. Sat there for 45 minutes, man. But Joe always gives me a hard time because I went to Tim Hortons first, Joe.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, you're leaving out a major part of the story. The aliens came by. They're addicted to Tim Hortons. They clicked at you and put it into your mind, go to Tim Hortons and get us some donuts. Then they gave you the memory of, oh, I have to go see a mothership. Well, no, they were sending you to Tim Hortons. And I bet if you check your receipt, you got your little donut and your ice cap, but you probably also purchased a huge bag of donuts and brought them back for the aliens and left them outside. I'm sure you did. Oh, yeah, you did.
I had one Dutchie donut.
The aliens sent you to Tim Hortons, man.
Well, either way, I pulled back into my driveway 45 minutes later, and the entire energy of Carl was gone.
Yeah.
And that's where I figured out something serious on how they leave. Because twice now, what they do is they project something in your head that if you go to this area, you're going to see something more, and it's going to be bigger and more special. And when you go to that area and nothing happens, you go back to the original area, they're gone. And I believe that they do that for their escape mechanism. So that way we're not watching how they leave. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it.
Do you think there was missing time there at all? Or do you have an anchor, like you saw what time it was when you got back or anything like that?
No, I was on the phone with our team. We say thanks, Joe. Good night, Lee. And hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot. Bumblefoot is rocking us inbound every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, Elvin, Facebook, Space Travelers Club, and on X, #SpaceTravelers.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Space Travelers Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friends,
don't make a mistake. We're watching.
Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a Yes, the Blue Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And when you want to bring a friend, we got room there too. Good night, everybody. Good show.
We own the night.
We are the night.
Yeah. Yeah. Frickin' Tim Hortons, man. Tim Hortons.
I know exactly what you're saying, though. With when they come, you feel it.
Oh, yeah. You know their energy.
Uh-huh. It's a different feeling. It's like not the same as our own. It feels very abrasive and feels kind of like a nasty negative sort of vibration.
Joe, do you know when they're coming?
I have no idea. I've never felt that. That's why I don't think I have aliens. But they may have come by. I do know that there are a lot of nights when I'm sitting out here. It's like right now, it's peaceful. There's a slight breeze. It's chilly. but every once in a while, the hair on the back of my neck will stand up, and the dog will notice it too. The dog will get up and look around and start this low growl, and it's like, okay, there's something out there. Could be a bear, could be a mountain lion, could be something else.
I want to ask you, Joe, with Lola,
Yeah.
do you think, or can you tell the difference in Lola's growls when it's, say, a bear, a coyote, a mountain lion compared to something else?
I have noticed that she'll bark at like the deer or the bear. I've seen that. The mountain lion, she tends to get silent and bristle up and kind of stand like her tough guy stand when there's something out there. She doesn't run off into the woods chasing something like some moron. But there are a couple of times where she's gotten this low, deep growl that you don't hear, and she'll come up and stand against me, kind of like between me and whatever's out there, and look up at me and look out there, and I'll say, okay, maybe it's time to go back inside.
How often does that happen?
Probably a couple times a month. And like I said, I don't know if it's the bear. I don't know if it's Bigfoot, or aliens, or some other weird thing. I mean, I've got the Hat Man up here, seen him on the barn before. But
Hold on.
there are times where she just will go nuts. She's been doing it lately, where she'll stand in one place and jump and shake her head around, almost like a lion trying to show something out there, how big she is.
You have the Hat Man?
Oh yeah, it's had him twice. One time, I was standing out here with a lady I know, and there was a noise. It sounded like a crash or something got knocked over behind the barn. And it was at night, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to go check that out. And I walked back over to the barn, over to the left side of it. Actually, that same path that I thought the Bigfoot might have taken earlier. I walk around the back of the barn. I'm looking, and I come around the other side. Couldn't find out what it was. And I walk back up, and her eyes are as big as saucers. And I said, what's the matter? She goes, I was watching, and when you walked there, now there's floodlights on the front of the barn that light up the front of the barn, so you can see it really well. She says, when you walked around the corner, there was a shadow went across the front of the barn from the right side to the left side, almost like it was following you around the corner. And she described, and she's not into all this stuff. And she says it was like a big shadow of a guy with a big wide-brimmed hat wearing a cloak, and the shadow went along the barn, and my Bronco was parked there. She said I could see like from the shoulders up. It was that tall, and it walked around the corner when you disappeared. I was thinking, okay, God, that's really weird. And then about 3 months later, I saw it. I heard a noise. I looked over the barn, and sure enough, it's like a big, wide brimmed hat. The shadow, you can see the face, but then when it hits the shoulders, it just kind of drops down. You don't see any arms or legs or anything. And it walked right across the front of the barn and went to the corner. And so I saw it once, somebody else saw it, and it was following me the first time, which kind of freaks me out. And I don't think it's the Hat Man, but I think what are the other ones? The regular shadow people. I think they call them peepers, where you're looking into the woods, and I can see this during the day sometimes, where you'd be looking out, not paying attention. All of a sudden, it looks like something peeps from behind a tree, but it's just a black mass. And it's not like a big Bigfoot peeking around a tree or a bear or something like that. It's like a black, it just kind of peeks around for a second and then pops back. I've seen that a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. I was thinking, well, maybe that was just a trick of the light or something. Yeah. But just another in the experience the thousands of them that have happened over the years. I just happen to notice them.
I've seen stuff like that too here in
Yeah, the
Washington.
tree peepers.
I don't know what they're called, but what you're explaining to me sounds very familiar, because I've seen, what I see is like shadows that dart between the trees, and I'll go to look, and I know where the shadow ended and it stopped behind a tree. And then I'll turn back and then I'll see movement again, and then I look and I don't see it move. But it happens a lot, like let's say around Mount Baker, especially where I've noticed this sort of thing happening.
What are peepers?
I've heard them called that on some other broadcasts where people see, like, something just peeps around a tree. You know, they'll be looking at a tree and you just see a black shadow or something, like something's looking at you and pops back. And like Lee said, I've seen that too, where there's movement.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see a tree or a rock, and you'll see something dart from one thing to the other, and you think, oh, there's an animal over there. But you know, there's no animal that comes out from behind the rock or behind the tree or whatever. You just kind of a fleeting glimpse of something. I had one night, the lights on the barn are motion activated. Lola had been over there. She'd set them off. And I'm standing out here. It was on one of your breaks. I'm smoking a cigarette, standing in the driveway. And I see a black shadow move across the lawn, that area out in front of the house. And it goes from a tree and it kind of goes up moving. And I figured, okay, that's a shadow from Lola. You know, she's between the barn and that area. And it's just her shadow down there. I turn around and look. She's inside the garage. She comes walking out of the garage. So it wasn't her shadow down there, but there was something that cast a shadow down across the lawn, and it moved across. It wasn't like the shadow peeper quick movement thing. It was more like a weird black mass. No explanation, just something you see.
Joe, do your neighbors have those same experiences?
I don't talk to my neighbors. It's not a mean thing. It's just, you know, they're far enough away that you don't run into them. You know, the closest one is actually on the other side of this grove of forest that you can see in the photos. And, you know, we never run into them because our roads don't meet. And there's a couple other people on the road that just, if weird stuff's happening around their place, I have never heard them mention it when I do talk to them. People like their privacy up here. That's why they've moved here. That's why they live here, to get away from everything and everybody.
Nikki in Seattle wants to know, what kind of minerals do you have on your property?
Oh, it's all granite. So lots of quartz and feldspar and mica. Like I said, this is dead center in the middle of the 49er gold rush back in the 1849s. This they call it gold country around here. There's thousands of miles of mines under this area.
Up here, Sasquatch have been known to leave quartz rocks as gifts.
Yeah, we have a lot of quartz up here.
Have you been left any gifts?
What's that?
Have you been left any gifts?
Not that I know of. I mean, they may have left something out. I remember hearing a guest on your show one time saying, like, the gifting areas, like, I know you do one, but it's out in the woods away. You got to drive there and you leave cars and balls and little things to see if they move around and stuff. But the guest had said something that stuck in my mind is like, don't have a gifting site near your house because you'll leave something out. It's like, oh, that's cool. They leave you something, you leave them something out and they think it's cool and they leave you something, but then you don't leave something out. Next thing you know, they're up there on your windows saying, hey, where's my thing? Where's my gift?
There you go.
So I don't do the gifting.
Lee's going to start.
Well, I'm going to start sleeping because I've been up for 21 hours.
Well, get to bed there, big guy.
Yeah, I'm going to bid you all a very good night.
Good talking with you, Lee.
Yeah, nice talking to you too.
We'll talk to you on Sunday, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not a problem. Well, why are you still here? There he goes. He's such a good dude.
Oh, yeah.
Such a good dude. You have fun there, Oob?
Oh, this is a blast. Anytime you need me back to come on, I mean, I've still got stories galore from weird places and weird things.
Well, fill us in.
See, it's hard. There's so many things that happened over the years. I usually don't think about them, and then like somebody will say something, like you mentioned something, and boom, then the memory will pop up. Trying to think of something that's weird that's happened, but nothing is jumping out at me right now. Told you some of my good ones.
I wonder how many people are going to try the quarters.
Oh, it's a long-term thing, unless they're coming to your house all the time. I said the guy mentioned it one night, and I put a stack. It's $1 coins that had the president's heads on them all. They're kind of gold colored. I got a stack of about 10 or 15 of them, and they only moved that one time.
Only once. It's all you need is just that one time.
Only once. And that was proof enough for me that something weird was. If the coins had just been knocked over, I would have thought, oh, I don't know, maybe I got up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, knocked them over, or mouse or a fly or something. Who knows? But you combine that with the camera not working, and there were deep cuts in my leg. It's a trifecta.
Nikki wants to know if you got dogmen in the area.
I haven't noticed anything like that. Is that Nikki for life? Nikki?
Yeah.
Okay, I got a story for you. And she was sort of a witness to it. We were on a panel on another show one night. And I'm sitting out here just like I usually am. The dog's around, and she's sitting on my feet right now. I let her back out of the house, being that we're off the air. And I started hearing like a branch break. And then I heard a rock. Sounded like somebody pushed a big rock over and it tumbled down the hill. And I mentioned this on the air, and Nikki said, oh, and she got a feeling. And it'd be great if you can get her on, if you could throw her in here. She could tell you all about this. But then I started hearing large branches breaking. I mean, no wind at all. We'd had a light dusting of snow at the time. And then I swear it was trees being knocked over, big oak trees or pine trees. It sounded like there was something out in the woods that was very angry and was just tearing things up. And I mentioned this on the air. I was telling him as it was happening. And Nikki kind of got the idea that there's something out there from somewhere else. It's not necessarily a Bigfoot or anything like that. It's something bigger and meaner and angrier and from someplace else. And I went out the next day looking in that area, and there were 4 huge trees that had been knocked over. And there was no reason for it. They were healthy trees. There was branches thrown all over the place. It looked like almost like a tornado had come down and just touched down in the forest for a second and shredded everything. It was really weird. If she's still there in the room, she could tell you what she was feeling about it. Mm-hmm. She thought there might have been a portal and maybe something came through. I believe she even mentioned that she's picking up that the Bigfoot were staying away from this thing, whatever it was. They were around and they witnessed it.
So weird.
Yeah, I've had 2 or 3 people from your show. Nikki's one of them, and Elizabeth from way back, and it might have been Paisley or somebody, but they've all said, Joe, from where you're sitting, if you go east into the woods, there's a portal out there somewhere. The elephants! But they've all, 3 different people, and they've said there's a portal out there somewhere that opens once in a while. I've never seen it. Who knows? Maybe that's where all these things are coming from. Maybe the Bigfoot use portals. Maybe the aliens use the portals. And maybe other things that we don't even know about come through once in a while.
No idea. You wanted the elephants, Joe.
I love the elephants. For the people that are new to the show, Dave used to do this after hours part. He'd show us all the cool animal cameras all over Africa. Saw some really interesting stuff on there.
There's a lot of elephants there, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's a lot of elephants today.
Would you say it was a plethora of elephants?
There is a plethora of elephants.
Very strange.
I would say that, actually.
Elephants are kind of neat. You ever touch one?
Yes.
They've got these little short hairs all over them. You don't think about it. They look smooth. They're not.
No, they got
Little
short
pokey,
hairs.
little short pokey hairs.
Yep.
I know you're always showing us the Africa cams. Do they have any Canadian cams where we can see moose and stuff? Or are they just too elusive?
Too elusive, and I'd probably get copyright infringement on it.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'll see if there's any other. Hold on. I always like. Where is it? Let's go to Rosie's Pan.
Is that the big pond?
Yeah, I always like that pond. Let's go this one. See if we got anything here. See if the hippopotamus is there today. Oh, no, it's raining in that area. Look at that. You can tell the elephants haven't been there recently because there's no
big piles of poop.
No poop on the edges here. No.
Nothing there.
Let's go to maybe see if the oryx are there.
Oh, that one.
I like this one.
Yeah, at one time there was hundreds of them.
Yeah,
the oryx or the ibex or
the oryx. See what other ones we got here. We'll do the tour. Where are we going here? Come on, let's go live here.
Yeah, I've had Lola in the house all night because she was barking earlier, but I like when I'm sitting out here at night. She's sitting right by me, just kind of licking her feet.
A giraffe.
Oh. Wow, that's hard to take a drink when you're that tall.
The only time they're very vulnerable is when they're drinking.
I saw a video the other day of a giraffe just kicking the bejesus out of a lion. Fun fact, they have purple tongues.
Do they? Yeah, they do.
They do?
You ever been to the zoo where they allow the giraffes to, get like a dried ice cream cone from you?
No.
Yeah, their tongues will wrap around it, and and their tongues are really cool, actually.
Yeah, whoever designed those things must have been smoking something that day.
Oh, have
A
to be.
big, tall, spotted horse with a great big long neck and horns.
Right?
It's like, what? Okay. There you go. Giraffe.
Why not?
How tall do they get, Dave? Look
What
it
do
up.
they get? What do they get? 17, 18 feet? Let's find out. How tall is a giraffe?
Look at the legs on that babe.
14 to 19 feet.
Oh, that's a dude. 14 to 19 feet.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. You look at those and how big they are, and then people will tell stories about seeing a 19-foot Bigfoot. I think that's a little too big.
I wouldn't want to run into a 19-footer.
Oh, no. No.
All right, Joseph. I'm going to call it the night, buddy.
All right. It was a pleasure to be here, Dave.
You too.
If you ever need someone, I'll pop on and talk about some ridiculous stuff.
Oh, yeah. It's all good, buddy. I appreciate you doing this. I'm sorry it took so long, but I'm so happy we did finally.
Well, I hope the people in chat enjoyed it. I couldn't see the chat room all night, but
Oh, they're all good, man.
it's too bad I can't do the replay and watch it, but that doesn't work either.
It'll be up and running soon. All right, buddy. To our chat room, thank you very much for a great week. Thank you tonight to Erlem ×2, Deborah Rooney with a hat trick, Cosmic Joe, Firewater, Search and Destroy, Jeff Steve Garvey, Major Lee, and Michael Gutierrez for the super chats. Thank you to all our new subscribers. If you're not a subscriber, do us a favor, hit that, ring that bell, hit that subscribe button, or you'll get oobed by Joe, and you don't want that. And don't forget,
Everybody
this
loves
weekend
the noob.
is here, and we'll say goodnight to all of you. Tune in to Robbie G, and we'll see you then on Monday.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.